Game of Thrones, the rage of spreading flames. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want to support us and get VIP access to exclusive content, our Ko-Fi is waiting for you. Chapter 76 title. As most of the soldiers in Qing City put down their weapons, the army began to clear out the remnants of Lannister who were still resisting at the end of the road, detained surrendered soldiers, the elderly, weak, women and children, and screened them, either killed or pardoned them. Cersei Lannister and her 3 children were found in the stone garden, and according to her maid's report, Cersei poisoned Joffrey, Tommen and Rhaenyra with mercury, while also ending herself with this life. Buried after confirmation, Leonor sat on the golden staircase of the Hall of Heroes. Listening to Arad's report, he waved his hand directly, too lazy to take a look after Arad left. Dickon also came over and said to Leonor on the stairs, "Your Majesty, Duke Tyriel is here, I understand, please come over." Leonor straightened his body and sat on the golden stairs for a while. Then he saw Maester Tyriel following Dickon, shaking his big belly, and walking over excitedly. "Haha, my Majesty, why are you still sitting here?" Lord Inflatable opened his arms to Leonor from a distance and looked enthusiastic. "My sir, why are you here?" Leonor moved his butt and gave up a position on the golden steps for Mr. Inflatable Fish. Maester Tyriel didn't dislike it at all, and sat down next to Leonor, while chatting, saying in an extremely exaggerated tone, "What did I come? My Majesty, you are so exaggerated. You have achieved such a great victory. How could I not come? If I don't come, who will witness your coronation ceremony and wedding ceremony?" Haha. Leonor smiled and said nothing. He knew that this guy was working for the matter of crowning and marriage. "You are still planning to be crowned here, right? Although this place is not as grand as the Baelor Cathedral, well, it is still memorable, but I think it's better to hold a wedding in King's Landing. Let the civilians in King's Landing let's share this joy too," Maester Tyriel advised hard, suggesting Leonor holds a wedding in King's Landing in Kyrock. "It costs money to hold a grand event," Leonor reminded Mesa. "It's okay, we can pay the money." Metz took over the big deal. "Haha, if that's the case, I'll think about it, and I won't discuss it now." Leonor smiled silently. He had just solved Lannister, and Tyriel came to his door. It was indeed the present world reporter. In order to obtain the help of the Tyriel family, he promised to continue his agreement with Renly and Huendi to marry the little Rose Margaret of the Tyriel family. For Renly, this transaction is far from being a marriage. The Margaret and the Tyriel family have never met men, and they don't really care about the title of queen. They are interested in the future power of the kingdom. A new round of Game of Thrones has begun, Leonor reminded himself in his heart, then cheered up and listened to the miserable ceiling of Metz next to him. In this case, the crowning and wedding of Baelor Cathedral will be put on. How are you preparing now? When will the ceremony begin? What title are you going to be crowned with? Who are you going to be your crowning person? To marry the witness? Have you brought a crown? Are you planning to get married in armor? When asked by the father-in-law of the inflatable fish, Leonor himself was also confused. He was either deeply involved in the vortex of power or leading troops to fight in the past few months. How could he have the energy to consider so many things? You are not prepared for nothing, right? The inflatable fish couldn't help but be surprised when he saw Leonor's confused expression. This guy was not concerned about such a big deal. Haha, how could it be? How could it be? Leonor called. I think that what you mentioned is nothing big except the crowning title." "No, there is nothing small about this matter." Mess sternly raised his face and corrected Leonor's words. "How could this be a small matter?" Yes, you're right." Leonor didn't want to argue with Metz. The inflatable fish was his father-in-law, and he would do whatever he said. "Then tell me, what preparations have you made?" Metz continued to ask. I think there is nothing wrong with armor." "What about the crown?" "My brother Robert's crown is not known where it is. I can't find it. I think Tywin's golden armor is good. It's enough to melt it and make it into a crown. Crown and get married. The faster the ceremony, the better, and the most important thing is the crowning claim." Leonor answered in an orderly manner. "How can you do this? Margaret is my only daughter. He is the rose of our Tyriel family. You can't be careless." Mess said a little earnestly, first educated her, and then said, I don't think so. Leave these things to me and I'll help you. How can you be so embarrassed? My lord, other things are okay. The crowning title is not counted after we say it. What title do you want me to be crowned? Leonor said it was okay for other things, but the crowning title was the only one. Title is of great importance in Westeros' default current legal system. The title of king is directly related to the king's personal power and the claim of the king. For example, Daenerys, who declares to everyone that she cannot stand in the house, born of the storm Daenerys, the unburned, the mother of the dragon, the queen of the dragon, the Calahi of the prairie, the queen of Meir, the king of Andals, the Loinus and the ancestors, ruled by the seven kingdoms, the guardian of the entire territory, the liberator, the shackles were broken, the queen of the seven kingdoms, and the princess of the Dragonstone Island. In addition to some titles obtained for personal special or achievements, some titles are claimed to exist for territory and country. For example, Daenerys declares herself as the king of the Andals, the Loinus and the ancestors, the ruler of the seven kingdoms, the guardian of the entire territory, the queen of the seven kingdoms, and the princess of the Dragonstone Island. She is concerned about people claim these titles to show outsiders her determination to return to Westeros to regain the Iron Throne. Robert's crown at that time was the title of the king of the Andals, the Loinus and the ancestors, ruins of the seven kingdoms, and guardian of the whole country. In addition, he also has usurpers, Trident River, the titles of devil and customer king, but you can't talk about these things casually. Leonor wants to be crowned in Qing City, and can inherit the titles of the Andals, the Loinus and the ancestors, ruins of the seven kingdoms and guardians of the whole country, but he wants to take this matter to take a look. The reactions of the princes in the whole territory, Westeros' only king, the ruler of the seven kingdoms, guarding the entire territory. What do you think? Mess immediately came to his interest when he saw Leonor ask about his opinion. Well, this is for me to go to awesome places, so that you can inherit your grandson, Margaret's son, and I, in the future. Leonor saw through the inflatable fish at a glance and responded with a smile. This also depends on His Highness Oberyn. And the response from the north, he always felt that titles should be recognized, such as First Emperor, Tian Khan, Emperor Manjushri, etc. He claimed that he was just a declaration with political metaphor. Let's see what everyone's reaction is. Let's talk about it. Chapter 77, The Palace of Heroes. When Miss Tyrael heard Leonor mention Dorne and the North, he felt that this matter was indeed necessary to contact them, so he sat on the golden steps and slapped his knees. Then what are we waiting for? Seeing that Miss was so proactive, Leonor waved and asked Dickon to inform the person. At the same time, he asked Arrod to bring tables and chairs and arrange the discussion site. First, there have been soldiers in the magnificent Hall of Heroes to clean up the bodies. At this moment, they have been packed up and the blankets soaked in blood have been removed. Arrod directed the soldiers to bring tables and chairs from other places, put wine, fruits and food, and arrange the scene quickly. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound rang in the Hall of Heroes like a war drum, endlessly, which made all the soldiers who were setting up the venue stop. Even Leonor, who was sitting on the steps, could not help but turn around and look sideways. He looked up at the hall where there was no sound source, but it made a sound. Don't worry, this is the sound of the tide. The Hall of Heroes is built on the seashore. Whenever the tide rises, such a sound will appear in the entire hall. The inflatable fish is not surprised by the sudden sound. Ono explained. Is that true? Leonor was a little strange. This Qing city was built in the entire stone mountain, and gold was piled up inside the hall. It was a magical craft. I didn't expect that it could resonate with a sea titan and speak out. It was a bit mysterious. It was a bit of a mystery. Now, just as all the soldiers slowly adapted to the situation and continued to arrange the venue, Leonor and Metz were chatting in the echoes in the Hall of Heroes. Oberyn walked in from outside the hall with great strides. He opened his arms and asked Leonor in the sound that was still echoing, "Does this sound like a war drum?" "You know too." Leonor was a little surprised. He had never been to Qing City, right? Of course, I didn't tell you that I had visited K-Rock City with my sister before. My mother wanted to facilitate our marriage with the Lannister twins. Well, I just wanted me to marry Cersei. Let me sister Ilya marry James Lannister. Oberyn spoke while showing an expression of unbearable memories in the past. I'm so glad that Lannister refused, otherwise I wouldn't be able to kill him like that. Your Highness, there is no need to reminisce about the past. Let him go over the past. Leonor sighed in his heart when he saw Oberyn speak easily. Who said he wouldn't let him go? Oberon picked a chair and sat on it, unwilling to argue with Leonor in this regard. Say it. What's the matter with you finding me here? That's right, Your Highness Oberon. I have a very good idea and want to discuss it with you. Mace patted his stomach with both hands and got close to Oberon. Good idea. Oberon raised his eyebrows calmly, glanced at the cheerful inflatable fish, full of doubts about his words, but he did not show it, and put on a look of "You said, I'm listening." Look, what is the right title for our Majesty when he was crowned? Mess asked first, and then without waiting for Oberon to answer, he said, I think, in order to deepen the relationship between our 7 kingdoms, the connection and deepen the friendship between the peoples worse than changing the title of His Majesty our King. Look, how about this title, the only king in Westeros? After hearing Mace's self-talk, Oberon showed a resolute expression on his face, but he was too lazy to say anything to this inflatable fish, just looking at Leonor. Is this what you mean, Your Highness? This is the suggestion given to me by Lord Tyrael. Leonor did not dare to take the blame and secretly told Oberon that I was pinned by the Tyrael family. His Royal Highness Oberon, you can send a Prince Doran. Mess also tried to persuade Oberon to send the crow back to Yanji City, and first ask Prince Doran about his opinion. No need to send a crow, I can reply to you now, Lord Mess. This is impossible. Your proposal will not be approved by the Princess of Dorne, and the princes of the northern border will object even more. If you do not believe me, you can send the crow to ask yourself. Oberon replied directly. It was Mess's turn to sit on the wax. Titles are all indifferent. My sir, thank you for thinking about me. Seeing Mess sitting on wax, Leonor spoke out and advised him not to care. Haha, I want to get a good title for you. When Mess heard Leonor's words, he came back to his senses and showed a smirk. Of course, I understand, and thank you for your advice, Your Highness. Leonor comforted Mess and thanked Oberon without Oberon's strong opposition. If Mess really wanted to send the crows, Leonor's temptation would probably lead to a huge diplomatic accident. No, Oberon took a deep look at Leonor, afraid that he would have any ideas, so he added, don't think about things you shouldn't think anymore. Just inherit the title of your brother Robert and sit on the Iron Throne to accept surrender. Of course, that's what I think. Leonor laughed. If a man doesn't have a dream, then what's the difference between it and a salted fish? He hasn't arrived yet. I hope so. Oberon nodded and warned that if Leonor really wanted to be the only king, then except for Huendi, there might no longer be his friends in the country, including himself. Speaking of this, Your Highness, what are you going to deal with Qing City? Leonor pulled the topic apart. Rock City. Oberon didn't come back to his senses. Did you forget my declaration? Tywin killed it with your own hands. If we are on your territory, we are your guests. Leonor joked. I can't bring out the wine to entertain you. Oberon took the wine from the table, poured a glass and handed it to Leonor first. Leonor took the wine glass and did not drink it directly, but transferred it to Mess, who could only smile, so that he could drink to relieve his embarrassment. Give me the Rock City. I will find an heir among my children. I don't like to stay in a fixed place. A baron handed Leonor a glass of wine again and accepted the city. Okay, Leonor heard Oberon's words and drank the wine. If nothing unexpected happens, the city should be distributed to Nymelia or Terrine, becoming their dowry and finally returning to his children are in his hands. After chatting for a while, a baron drank a pot of wine, and felt that it was not very satisfying. He went to find a drink elsewhere. Mess waited for him to leave and discussed with Leonor for a while about crowning and marriage. Just leave the matter. Leonor sent Oberon and Mess away one after another. Listening to the sound of the tides that were still echoing in the Hero Golden Hall, he narrowed his eyes and leaned on the back of the chair thinking about things. Suddenly he felt someone approaching. He opened his eyes and only seeing Dickon come over. What's the matter? Leonor asked the young Dickon. Your Majesty, I found something in Qing City. Dickon was a little nervous. Huh? Leonor showed a puzzled expression. Is the spoil found in Qing City gold? Chapter 78 Magic Scroll. Leonor originally thought that Dickon found some gold products at Kaelin Castle. After all, this place is famous for producing gold mines. Lannister City even built a Hall of Heroes with gold, and the steps inside are all gold. It is normal to get any gold product. He thought Dickon would take out some weird gold gadget, but he didn't expect the young man opposite to take out a scroll from behind his waist. What? Leonor was a little surprised. He took the scroll from Dickon's nervous expression and spread it straight in his hand. The scroll is made of yellowed and brown parchment paper, which looks old at first glance. After opening it, colorful humanoid images are revealed on it, posing in various super difficult positions. From the image, it seems that there are 2 men and 1 female. What a guy. Little Emperor picture. Is this a wedding gift for me? Leonor almost laughed at him, and asked Dickon opposite him with a one-sentence blush. The Little Emperor's painting is not uncommon in Westeros. It is a textbook used by people to impart knowledge of gender to future generations, and many nobles and knights will collect it. No, this is what I found in a room in the city. I don't think he looks like a book, it's more like... Dickon blushed, a little hard to speak. What do you think? Leonor asked back and looked down at the sheepskin scroll in his hand. Well, these postures are very fresh and refined to the people of Westeros, but nothing is strange to him, a modern person, like a magic scroll. Dickon mustered up his courage. Magic scroll. Leonor raised his head and looked surprised. He knew that Westeros had little knowledge, but he would not have regarded this little royal picture as a magic book. Yeah, Dickon Tally nodded seriously. He dared not tell Leonor that the scroll was not found by him from Qing City, but was dug out from the cooling castle. The legend was from his first ancestors. Hunter Halling and Horse Holeton. These 2 ancestors of Jailing are said to be descendants of Gars, the kings in Huon, and 2 brothers of the first generation of Huon king. They built their own castle on the Horn Tomb and married the forest witches who lived there. Legend has it that they associate with the witches every full moon, so they gained a lifespan far exceeding that of ordinary people. This scroll also comes from it was passed down from the 2 brothers because he wanted to please Liano, who was interested in magic. Landeo Tali took out the scroll passed down from his family and asked Deacon Tali to Liano in the name of the trophy to avoid making the monarch suspicious. How come this is like a magic scroll? Leonor suppressed his smile, looking like, I heard that the clever Lane is said to have lived to be 312 years old and gave birth to 100 sons and 100 daughters. The man is handsome and the woman is beautiful, all of whom are healthy and agile. Dakina, I made up the reason my father had already made up. I sent something like magic to myself. It seems that everyone knows what I like magic, let them go. Liano had some alchemy practice process that was seen by people, and knew that the Tali family might have seen this and tried to please him, but he didn't think anything unusual. If his hobbies and interests were ignored by people, that made him look like he didn't. Okay, this thing is considered a wedding gift you gave me. Leonor waved his hand and spread the Little Emperor's paintings open, preparing to take a critical look. Yes, Dickon Tally retreated with tact, allowing Leonor to quietly watch the magic scroll. Liano looked at the magic scroll in his hand with a critical look, and suddenly felt a trace of abnormality. He found that on the human-shaped color picture in the scroll, there seemed to be some difficult marks on the body of the 2 men and 1 woman. Those marks it is red dot-shaped, and it is located at the center of the eyebrows, lower abdomen and other key points of men and women. There are almost imperceptible lines connecting them, which continue to move with a joyful movements. Hiss, it seems. Leonor couldn't help but take a breath when he saw the root of the red dot marks clearly. This seemed to be a magic scroll. And it seems to be a dual practice method. There are dual cultivation methods in the Yangshan world, both martial arts and Taoist techniques. Among them, Taoist techniques are the intercourse between gods, which is the entanglement of souls, which is used to nurture thoughts and change temperament. However, those with shallow martial arts use ki and blood to control muscles and muscles, which is profound. This contains the principle of developing acupoints. The more Leonor looked, the more he felt, the more he was excited. The thing Dickon brought seemed to be a real thing. Although it looked rough and primitive, the red dots and lines in it were almost invisible, but it was old and simple and profound. It makes people feel like the spirit and soul entanglement, and it also has the principle of physical acupoints. If this scroll really belongs to the clever Lanan, then the legend can be verified. What is the exaggeration of 312 years old and 200 children? But if you live a longer life and have a lot of children, it is completely understandable because of the dual cultivation. These are the aspects that law strengthens. The more Leonor thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He studied the magic scroll in his hand for a while, wrote down the key points of it, and then closed the scroll. Namilia. Leonor stood up and greeted his female guard. Namilia and Tarini, Abea and Brienne have been by Liano's side, and as Liano talks with Mess and Oberon, they are listening to the echoing tide of the Hall of Heroes relieve the boredom, and didn't care about the scroll that Dickon sent to Liano. He came to his senses only when he was summoned by Liano. The named Sand Snake pointed at him with a cute look on his face and asked you if he was looking for him. Namilia, come here, I have something to talk to you about. Leonor nodded affirmatively. Namilia didn't know what Leonor was going to talk about, So she walked up to him and let him hold his hand. "You guys rest here first, don't have to follow." Leonor pulled Nymelia away, and at the same time stopped Renly, Abea and Brienne from following. "Your Majesty." The honest Brienne was puzzled by Leonor's anxiousness. She just opened her mouth to ask, but was pulled by a thick black hand. "Listen to your Majesty." As the eldest sister of the Sword Snake, Aobea saw a clue and didn't want this rough and ugly storm woman to ruin her sister's good things. "Brienne, where's your home?" Renly, who had a sweet voice, attracted Brienne's attention with her words when she saw her elder sister's angrily voice. "The Mullen Hall of Tass Island." Brienne was very unhappy with the stout Curano Abea. But she treated Darren with fair and cute faces and answered her questions truthfully. "Where are sapphires produced there?" Renly asked with a smile. "Why do you think so?" Brienne was a little puzzled. Mullen Hall was very poor. It was neither located at the important point of the waterway nor had good mining resources. Why did she think that sapphires were produced there? "Because your eyes look like sapphires." Renly said something and made Brienne's numb face at a loss, then she looked shy. Chapter 79 Discussion. Leano has never been a person who likes fishing. He just wanted to verify the dual practice method that seemed to be in the magic scroll. However, after he pulled Nymelia and found several places in Qing City, I found that no matter where I walked, I could see people, and there was no extra space for him and Nymelia. "Where are you going to take me?" Nymelia let Leano pull herself. At first, she had a little premonition and her heart beat a little faster, but when he brought herself to the east and west, she kept stopping. "I couldn't help but feel curious, haha. I just want to take you around." Leonor calmed down. Of course he was embarrassed to tell Nymelia that "I wanted to find a place to sleep with you," so he made up a reason casually. "Then why not let Brienne and the others follow you?" Nymelia tilted her head. Could it be that she was wrong? Isn't this guy trying to sleep with her? "If you want to stay alone with you for a while, your hands are really soft." Leonor opened his mouth and pinched Nymelia's little hand. This little hand was not like a martial arts hand that had been practicing for many years, and it felt soft to catch. "Is there any? I often use weapons, and my palms often get worn out." Nymelia was a little surprised and looked at her palms. Although they were quite white and tender, they were covered with calluses after being rubbed by the weapon. "That must be very hard." Leonor listened to Nymelia's words, opened her palm and saw that there were indeed some slight calluses, but it was not obvious. In addition, Nymelia did not look dark. The skin should be caused by not being serious when practicing martial arts, but at this time, "You must mention this matter without opening your eyes." "Well, my father is very strict with us. He said that only weapons are our loyal friends." Nymelia nodded fiercely. "Your Highness is right, but he is too strict with your training. How can you treat girls like this?" Leonor complained a little. His originally white and tender little hands were covered with calluses, which really hindered the touch. "How should you treat girls?" Nymelia became interested. "Girl? I can't say it well." Leonor dared not say that as long as he is responsible for beauty. Girls can be the best as long as beauty, but not every man can afford a woman who is as beautiful as beauty, and tens of thousands of people can have thousands of people beautiful. "Huh?" Nymelia dragged her voice. "Every girl has her own beautiful place, just like you." Leonor retracted his mind. He found that he could not find a hidden place for a fair, nor could he learn the rumors of the nobles. The urge to take off your clothes by finding a place, simply gave up the idea of sleeping with Nymelia and instead mobilized the emotions first. There is no specific method of practicing both magic and magic in the Tao Sutra, but it mentions some basic concepts of the intercourse between souls and souls. When the intercourse between souls and souls, the more affection the two parties are, the better the effect. Therefore, the practice should focus on cultivating emotions. Sensory stimulation is supplemented, not to mention how Leonor spoke love words to Nymelia in a scattered manner to increase each other's emotions. All the soldiers in Qing City quickly cleaned up the entire city and cleared out all the bodies. It was time to claim it, but no one claimed it. All the corpses were burned into ashes and scattered into the sea to prevent the White Walkers from being conquered as big-headed soldiers. After clearing out the blood and ashes, the soldiers began to decorate the city. Terrier's family ships transported pots of flowers from the high house, colorful, with a fragrance of flowers to dilute the blood and cover the ruins with brocade curtains. The Terrier family is very rich, but the supplies prepared to decorate Qing City are still insufficient. There are enough bright red tapestry, but the carpet is not enough to cover the entire Hall of Heroes. Miss is very upset about this and asks Leano's opinion. Depends on whether other colors of carpet can be replaced. No carpet is needed. Isn't Lannister's flag also bright red? It's very good to use it for laying the floor. Leonor gave his own solution, the lion flag of the Lannister family. I think this is good. Mess was a little worried. After all, it was the top family among the Seven Kingdoms, but then he thought, the Lannister family had been banned. To completely eliminate them, use their lion flag to pave the floor in their Qing city. This does not show the power of the Wushu. It is very possible. I don't think the archbishop needs to be found or something. Leonor cancelled the carpet and brought it up, and at the same time proposed another thing. The crowning usually comes to the archbishop of the church, which means that his monarchy is granted by God. Have you changed your mind? Mess eyes lit up. He had always wanted to act as Leonor's crowning host and witness. No, I want to crown myself. Leonor was embarrassed and rejected Mess's kindness. He didn't even want to accept the divine right of the king, let alone the gift of others. Crown yourself. Mess's expression became solid, which was too anti-traditional. It depends mainly on what you mean. After all, not all the princes attending the ceremony this time are believers of the seven gods, Leonor said without waiting for Messa to reply, and, I think Margaret's queen crown is not the same. Will I put it on for her? What does this mean? You add a queen crown to Margaret and you add a crown to yourself. These are two things. Or do I disagree with you adding a crown to yourself, so don't you want to add a crown to Margaret? When Mess heard Leonor's words, he couldn't help but think a lot and struggled in his heart. Should he express his belief in the seven gods? Sir, if you think it's offending tradition, then forget it. Leonor just wanted to have a thought. Even if the archbishop gave him a crown, it didn't matter. Anyway, he should liquidate the church in the future. If you want, then you can crown yourself. Metz finally gave up supporting the church. After all, the higher the power of Leonor's king, the higher the power his future grandson will get. Rounded, Tilly, the greater the glory and authority the family will receive. Then you support me. Thank you so much. My father, you are the most reasonable person I have ever met. Seeing Mess agree, Leonor immediately changed his words, saying sweet words are not worth the money anyway. He called me father? Yes, Margaret married him, and he didn't have any problem calling me father. I am the king's father-in-law, not that is equivalent to his father. Mess was dizzy when he was shouted by Leonor's words father, showing a happy expression. When he came to his senses, he felt that he was inappropriate. He coughed and said with a tense face, you must treat Margaret well in the future. The most important thing is to let her conceive your child earlier, and the more the better. Only in this way can the Baratheon family flourish again. You don't have many immediate relatives. Mace said it seriously. Children will definitely have more children, but it is hard to say that they were not born by Margaret. Leonor complained in his heart that if only Margaret was pregnant with his child, he would not be restricted by Tyrell's relatives to death. He complained in his heart, but his face remained calm and continued to flatter Lord Mace with a smile, feeling that his pretentious posture and bulging belly became amiable. Chapter 80 Crown. The Andals, the Loynists, and the ancestors successively established many kingdoms on the land south of the Great Wall in Westeros. After many competitions, they formed the northern border, the eastern border, the Hygian border and the western border. The seven alliance kingdoms dominated by River Bay land, Stormland and Dorneland stand together. Aegon Targaryen, a Valyrian, came here. He rode a flying dragon and saw the entire Westeros continent, and drew it on a map, and finally unified the place with the flames of the dragon. Reinforced the princes of the seven kingdoms, but his kingdom did not have a specific name. This land has always been called Seven Kingdoms or Knight's Kingdom. Even Westeros, it's just a relatively uncommon geographical noun now, with the western princes, mainly Qing City, being destroyed by Leonor. The names of the seven kingdoms can actually be swept into the historical pile, because a brand new country is about to appear with everything ready. The city of Cairhien, which had been broken, was decorated with golden-crowned stag flags and bright red carpets, becoming the city's main tones before the agreed day. Alina Redwyn, known as the Queen of Thorns, came to Qing City as the last major guest. The old woman did not enter the city immediately, but stood in the city looking at the exterior. It once looked like a giant, but now it was covered by golden silken king flags, covering the city's broken Qing City. What a pity. It used to be so majestic, now it is like a bitten apple. Olena complained about Leonor's destruction of Cairhien City. Mom, Lord Mess, who was in charge of the greeting, rushed over, his face full of caution and anxiety. Okay, I understand. I'm here. Are you still anxious for a while? Alina looked impatient. Are there any customers in addition to me? The princes in the north did not come. The Bronze Joe of Fury City arrived, Edmu and Blackfish in the Running City came, and Loose Bodden of the North Terror Fort are also here, Mess muttered as he arrived. Big guys, where are the Stark's people? Alina's shriveled mouth bulged. Not coming. Robb Stark is said to be injured, and he sent people to search for his father in the river. The wolf cubs from the Stark family are not convinced of us. Alina showed a disdainful smile, and said in a very affirmative tone, what should you do if your son-in-law is going to do? He said he didn't care. He actually wanted to start the wedding very early. He asked me to say that it would be too sloppy, and the king's wedding would have to be generous. How could there be no nobles attend? Mess said in a nagging manner, you're just a fool. Alina scolded without hesitation. Mom, you? Mess stopped talking. His expression became aggrieved. Why did he scold himself again? Is he wrong? Is His Majesty the King wrong? His army is here, and that is the best witness to his coronation ceremony and wedding. You idiot dragged the ceremony for so long and spent countless money and food is just to wait for a group of waste who only knows how to eat and drink. How could I have a son like you? Alina was full of regret, but now it's like this. Mess was not angry when he was scolded by his mother. He was scolded a lot for some things, that's it. Get rid of the crowning example and ceremony as soon as possible. Alina's face hurt. The Terrier family paid all the fees for this crowning ceremony. Thanks to the little king. He made a promise to let the High Court had reason to exempt the military expenses, and Loras killed Roland Cranch in this war, and according to the agreement, the Terrier family could get the chicken haul, which was not considered to be nothing. Okay, Mess nodded quickly after Olina, the old grandmother, took her seat. The coronation ceremony in Qing City officially began. Buckets of wine were piled up, and large sausages and steaks were piled up on the plates, allowing people to enjoy themselves. When used, the wine and meat dilute the smoke of gunpowder, and the noise covers the blood in the magnificent Hall of Heroes. Under the Golden King flag hanging, lords and knights from all over the country stood together, watching Leonor standing on a golden platform. He was wearing a black robe today, a golden ribbon with a crowned stag hanging on his shoulders, standing on the stage with a fat archbishop who looked like a ball, facing away from 7 colorful curtains painted with guts, and receiving the attention of everyone. The archbishop, who was as fat as a ball, stood in front of him and made a loud statement to all the guests. Today, we stand here, under the gaze of the 7 gods, witness Leonor Baratheon I as King of Andals, Loinus and ancestors, guardians of the entire territory, and the Summer Prince of Hall, Duke of Stormland. After the loud announcement, a servant brought a wooden plate. A golden crown was placed on the red silk inside the plate. The crown was in the shape of a grass ring, with huge antlers and trees distributed on it, and a 7-pointed star was engraved on the forehead. Several bright rubies of varying sizes are embedded around it. The crown was made of Tywin's outrageous golden armor, and even the ruby was buckled from the lion statue of the armor. The fat archbishop held the crown with both hands, turned around and walked to Leonor, nodded slightly at him, signaling him to bow down so that he could put the crown on him. Leonor ignored the archbishop's sign, snorted coldly in his heart, stretched out his right hand and took it to you. Seeing that Leonor did not cooperate, the archbishop sighed in his heart and could only hand over the crown as planned. Taking the crown with antlers, trees and 7 stars, Leonor walked to the front of the stage, facing the lords and knights. Under their gaze, he raised the crown in his hand over his head and then slowly landed on it. Overhead, the Andals, the Loinus, the ancestors and the rulers of the 7 kingdoms, the guardian of the whole territory, the prince of the Midsummer Hall, and the Duke of the Stormland, hear I, the swearing to the 7 gods. In the name of the Father, I will make justice come to my kingdom. In the name of the Virgin, I will make my people rich. In the name of warriors, I will fight to defend the country. In the name of a girl, I will defend all women. In the name of blacksmith, my kingdom will have food. In the name of the old woman, I will seek all wisdom to make the nation peaceful. In the name of a stranger, as a king, facing the front, I will be fearless. Wow! The trumpeters in the living room struggled to pluck their cheeks, making the 77 horns sound together, and a roar sounded in the Hall of Heroes at the right time, and the tide also responded. The huge sound made many soldiers in Qing City outside. They all stopped what they were doing and looked towards the direction of the Hall of Heroes with the horns. The tides, the surrounding lords and nobles and soldiers outside the city, countless tangible and invisible eyes. Leonor felt his heart surging, and the soul in his body expanded infinitely, without any visualization, and consciousness extended outside the body. Sweep through every corner of the Hall of Heroes, then look outward, and see the entire Qing city and everyone in the city break through. Chapter 81 The Way of the Holy Emperor. The soul broke through, not only broke through, but also broke through 2 levels of realms in a row, breaking through from the realm of driving objects, and directly reaching the realm of possession. It is only the last level before you can pass through the barrier of life and death and become a ghost immortal, taking the country as one, taking oneself as one's holy emperor, and taking all the people as one's thoughts, governing mountains and rivers, and prevailing all things, so that they can unite the sun, moon, heaven and earth. Leonor thought of a sentence mentioned in the Taoist scriptures in his mind, suppressing his thoughts of being ready to move, and understanding his own situation. He was invisibly entering the path of the Holy Emperor with the country as his body. The cultivation of Taoism in the Yangshan world is mainly based on the thoughts of the soul and the mind, which is mainly based on the enlightenment of every thought. Most practitioners in the Yangshan world mainly focus on their own visualization and conditioning, but there are also social practices. Those who create their own theories based on their own understanding and conduct governance experiments in the country, and do not practice anything at all on weekdays. The magic used by the soul is just to focus on nourishing the soul. When the country's governance is successful, it can leave the soul out of its body. At that time, not to mention becoming a ghost immortal in one day, it is even to survive 6 thunder tribulations in one breath. Can practitioners in the Yangshan world call this method of practice the Saint Emperor's way, because most of the people who practice this method are the leaders of the human race in that world, as saints in Confucianism, and as saints and practitioners. Leonor accidentally entered this path of cultivation, from Fengxi Fort and Red Fort to the management of the Midsummer Hall, to the Imperial meeting to endure the hidden reputation and intrigue until he took advantage of the situation and mobilized the troops. These behaviors are all trainings to one's own soul. Now that they have stepped on Qing City, successfully crowned, and ushered in the eyes of all people, they are a small test, and their thoughts are naturally understood, and the realm of soul has also been formed along the way. In fact, he was too reckless earlier. If he had not been eager to achieve success in Red Fort when he was a teenager and had recklessly left his soul out of his body, he would have failed to cultivate any practical magic, but he had just slaughtered some things such as purple thunder gunpowder and black gold silk. On the contrary, he was worried that his soul was weak and he never dared to go out of his body and sneak out, for fear of being frightened by lightning and being frightened if he can be more tolerant. Then at this moment, his soul will be able to break through all the way, directly enter the realm of ghost immortals, and escape from the life and death of mortals. However, in that case, his body without the marrow of being washed away will inevitably not be able to support him. If you keep it, your soul will turn around your body, causing the qi in blood to decline. You will definitely be able to be disintegrated and die on the spot. This is a drink and a peck. Leonor instantly sorted out his origins, sighed in his heart, and stopped the divine thoughts that were constantly spreading, and swept across everyone's faces in the Hall of Heroes, shaking their expressions and emotions such as excitement and worry. It is all in my heart, no matter how far or near, it is all like a positive face, and my thoughts are in slightest. The soul has broken through to the realm of possession, and no longer needs to use visualization to remove the soul from its body. It only needs a thought to shine on the surroundings, as if it had seen with your own eyes. At the same time, his soul can also fit all kinds of flesh and blood bodies. Being able to possess animals and humans is called the model changer in Westeros magic system. Do you want to find a small thing to try now? Leonor could not help but think of the change of form, and his mind expanded again, sweeping over the horses in the stables in the city and the birds in the sky. As long as he wanted, he could occupy these small things with one thought. The bodies of animals, then run or soar naturally, borrow their bodies to see the mountains, rivers and earth. Forget it, this is not the time now. Reducing the eagerness in his heart again, Leonor took back his thoughts, stood in the hall, glanced at Metz, who was looking forward to it, and said, "Today, I am here to comfort my brother's soul and at the same time announce a major news that I will marry Margaret Tyrio, the daughter of Lord Metz, Duke of the Hue and Eng High Court, as my bride." Wow! Even though everyone in the Hall of Heroes was mentally prepared, when they heard Leonor's announcement, the lords and nobles were still talking in a low voice, like the ripples on the lake, becoming wider and wider. "Quiet," Leonor shouted, and immediately calmed the hall again. His words and deeds now were filled with a great sense of oppression, which was impossible to ignore. Mr. Mess. Leonor suppressed the noise of the crowd and turned his attention to Mess in the lower end. "Honor, my honor is my majesty." Mess wore a green robe embroidered with the gold rose today, and the brown beard at the corner of his mouth was combed up like a calf's horn. It was very happy. The Tyrion family's long wish will be in him. Achieve it in hand. Mess responded repeatedly and handed out his right arm to Margaret, who looked happy next to him. Margaret is wearing a complex golden long dress today, with brown hair tied into a bun, and 2 strands of curled hair hanging next to her face, making her face look more delicate and beautiful, with elegant temperament, and she smiles with a reserved smile, reached out and held his father Metz's arm, and walked up to the platform under his leadership, and walked to Leonor. "Your Majesty." Margaret lifted the corner of her skirt and gave a lady's gift next to him. A boy brought a silver crown placed on purple silk. This is the crown prepared by the Tyrion family. It is made of silver. It is also made of garland, with roses on it, and the heart of the flower is inlaid with glitter. The bright diamonds shine with a golden palace. "Margariterio, here, are you willing to be my bride?" Leonor asked. "With a silver crown? I will, in the name of the Father, I will be loyal to you, far better than others." Margaret swore to Leonor in the name of the 7 gods, and asked again, "My Majesty, are you willing to marry me as your queen?" "Well, in the name of the Father, you will become my queen and share my glory." Leonor also made a vow at 7 times, and then took the silver rose crown from the boy's hand and lifted it up. He got up, gestured to everyone, and put it on the little rose's bun, feeling the crown on top of his head. Even though he was scheming, Margaret couldn't help but feel happy. She stood up and looked at Leonor with water. "Come to me." Leonor greeted and asked Margaret to walk from Metz to her side, meaning that she belonged to her from today. By the time Margaret walked from her father to Leonor, her identity had changed from a daughter to a wife, and Miss Tyrell also completed his mission, turned around and walked off the platform, and stood back to the front of the crowd, standing with the gray-haired Queen Olenna, still with a happy expression on her face, which made Mrs. Olenna roll her eyes when Messry standing among the crowd below. A man with a red beard came out and shook his chest to Leonor and Margaret. "Your Majesty, I am Pixar Redwyn of Qing Island. And I am here to offer a gift to you and Queen Margaret. My fleet captured Dragonstone Island in your name yesterday and expelled the fake King Stannis, captive Princess Shireen Baratheon and the wind-raging knight Davos Seaworth." Wow, the Hall of Heroes became noisy again. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 The King and Chapter X27, S-Hand. Redwyn is one of the most important vassals in the River Bay and is Olenna's mother's home. They captured Longstone Island yesterday and came here to offer gifts to Longstone Island today. This is not what I am trying to capture Longstone Island in my name. It should have captured Longshea Island in the name of Margaret. Using Dragonstone territory as a marriage gift is an indication that I regained the tradition of the Targaryen family and gave Dragonstone Island to me and Margaret's future children. As a symbol of the crown, Prince Leonor knew what the river beside was thinking, but laughed loudly. "Very good, Earl of Parker. I'm glad you received your gift." After the evaluation, he stopped talking. The princes in the Hedro Temple were slightly surprised to see this, and the crowd of His Highness came out to offer gifts in a commotion. "I am John Redus of Fury City, and I offer gifts to His Majesty and the Queen on behalf of the East." The old man in ancient bronze armor opened the silver box in his hand, revealing an exquisite gold cup, which was covered with inlaid. There were gems, and there were also servants next to them who brought several boxes, full of spices such as beans, cinnamon, saffron, etc., but they were gifts collected by the princes of the eastern region. They were all presented by Yon alone. If the gifts were presented separately, each there are too few personal gifts, so I really can't show it. After John Redus, Ed Mutelli, the representative of the city of Running City, stepped forward and apologized for his seriously ill father. He then sent 20 boxes of wine, horses and wine from Higiandi Specialties. It seems shabby, but it's enough to have that meaning. The Tully family has limited dominance in Higian and is not rich. They were beaten up by Lannister just now following Edmu's Vard Frey of Twin City. This weasel-like old man gave him 10 pairs of sea dogs, 100 dried seahorses, 1,000 Reese beetles, and a volume of Reese portraits, all our supplies in that aspect. After hearing the gift from Twin City, Lyanno couldn't help but twitch his lips, but nodded and accepted the gift and praised it after round. The gifts are very long, but from the gifts presented, we can see the gap between the various territories. There are lords who are extremely luxurious and spend thousands of dollars, while there are lords who are poor and poor, cut their flesh and bleeding. Of course, there are also those kinds of he only gave some wolf else, but he was also very fond, and the gift was light, and the affection was heavy. After all, the ruthless and unintentional Lannister was dead. The gifting session passed quickly and the final reward session of the celebration came according to the initial arrangement. Dickon Talai should have replaced Leonor to read out the reward list of hundreds of people, but he was held down by Leonor before he took office. Mess Tyrael comes forward. Leonor was wearing black clothes and the ribbon was tilted to his shoulders. He first pressed Dickon, who was about to move forward, and then took a step forward in Margaret's surprised expression. Summons to the nobles, my majesty. Mess didn't know what Leonor was going to do, so he walked to the front of the stage happily. Mess Tyrael, Count Pixter regains Dragonstone Island for me. I am very happy. Is there any instruction from you? Leonor asked Mess. Of course. Mess was stunned at first, and then called haha. He knew about Redwyn, Kingting Island, and rounded it up. It would be okay to be considered as. I often hear people say that victory or defeat can be decided in a distant place. Your wisdom is so extraordinary, so I will appoint you as my king's hand. Wow, this time the hall was really booming, because no one expected that Leonor would give the Tyrion family such a reward. It was not enough to marry their queen, and even let the inflatable fish take the hand of the king before the commotion crowd. Metz was already stunned by the sudden news. His expression was joyful and laughing, and he even wanted to jump up and shout, but standing before so many people, he didn't dare to do this. What else can he do besides being delighted? He forgot. Quiet. Leonor frowned when he heard the noise in the hall, and an invisible pressure emanated from his center, which immediately suppressed the sound in the hall, making it calm again. Mr. Mess, if you want to take charge of my king's hand, do you understand your mission? Leonor asked Mess, who was helpless down. I understand. Mission. Mess answered affirmatively first, and now he promised to become the king's hand first. However, mission? What mission? Your first task is to make your king noble, and the second task is to make the kingdom great. Leonor rolled his eyes in his heart, but his face was still kind. My king is supreme, and in the name of the seven gods, I will make my king noble and my kingdom great. Mess couldn't wait to sworn, and then say that he became the king's hand first. Thank you for your willingness to assist me in governing the country. Here I announce again that the original ministers of the former meeting of the Imperial Council were reduced from 7 to 3, except for the king's hand. All the others were abolished, and the chief inspector and the great knight were re-established, and everything in the kingdom was established. All the important things are determined by the 3 emperors before the king. Leonor announced another order. Wow, this time the noise was even better, because the reduction of the number of people in the imperial meetings meant that the power was more concentrated, especially the king's hand. This position had no fixed responsibilities. According to the previous regulations, when the king was not present, the king's hand even you can sit on the Iron Throne to perform royal power. Quiet, all quiet. This time, the person who called Leonor quietly was Mess Tyrael. The inflatable fish was almost knocked out by continuous surprises. Hearing the people on the scene screaming so loudly, he was almost crazy about to look down on the king. Don't worry. Let His Majesty the King finish his words first. I want to see who the chief inspector and the great knight are. Quiet, Leonor shouted again, calming the palace again. The great knight will be Balliston, because he is the captain of the royal guard. He is fair and selfless, and he is also the best knight in the world today. I will ask him to re-establish the rank standards and morality of the knights, and to the knights all over the country conduct the assessment. Leonor expressed his expressionless expression to the leader of the great knight. No one was present, because there was no rebuttal point. There were many well-known knights in the world today, but they were as flawless as Balliston. Really not. General Inspector, His Highness Oberyn Martell. Leonor turned his eyes to Oberyn, who had always been watching the show in the crowd, and his words kept the red venomous snake's expression. I object. A cry came out from the crowd, and the Bronze John from Furystone City in the East Valley directly came out, pointing to Oberyn, who was still dull in his expression. Don's red venomous snake does not obey the rules of the night duel. He is not worthy of it. Be the chief inspector. If Balliston was appointed because of his perfect knighthood and morality, then how could Duan's Oberyn Martell have such qualifications? He was caught having an affair with someone and used poison to cause people to fight with the other party. Death, thus the nickname Red Viper. Chapter 83 Reward. Oberyn wore a red embroidered gold robe today. Facing the bronze giant who directly accused him in public, he was not angry. Instead, he showed a playful expression, curled up the corners of his mouth, looked at Leonor with his arms in his arms, and gave him a look. He gave him a what-to-do expression, the chief inspector, instead of the king, supervising the lord, nobles and knights. Any traitor like Tywin Lannister, or a defeated person like Cersei Lannister, can be directly rebuked and reported to the law for review and processing. Even if it is a king, once he finds something bad, he must truthfully advise the king. The king will never blame the inspector for his misconduct. Leonor's not anxious or slowed down. The nobles were stunned. How could this make the inspector even more powerful than the king? His Highness Oberyn is well-read, has a broad knowledge, and is unruly. His personality is not distinguishing between high and low. He is the one who can remind me and advise me at all times. His Highness Oberyn, what do you think? Leonor said to him. Oberyn, whose expression turned dark, asked his opinion in a slightly playful tone. It is said that a baron reads a lot of books and has extensive knowledge. He studied in the Skull City when he was a teenager and even created 6 of his own necklace rings. However, later he felt bored and chose to drop out of school and instead traveled. On the continent of Ursus, if a person like him is not very knowledgeable, then who knows more? If he is unruly and does not distinguish between high and low, then no one will refute it. His mouth can be compared with a poisonous snake that squirts venom. The skin color of an illegitimate girl is also different. Not to mention whether it is different between high and low, it is said that both men and women eat each other. Faced with Leonor's words, Bronze John suddenly lost his words, and the old knight was even a little embarrassed and annoyed. He felt that the young king was speaking too slowly. If he had said this just now, he would not have jumped out to refute like this. No one spoke at the scene. Oberyn also had a dark face. Seeing that he did not reply, Leonor called out again, His Highness Oberyn, are you unwilling to assist me? Oberyn faced Leonor's playful gaze, and had a dark face, and could only wind a bullet and shout, Glory my king. It is impossible for him to reject Leonor, which means that Yangji City has lost the opportunity to enter the core of the kingdom's power. Glory my king. Mess immediately followed. Even if he had a bastard and a piece of wood, it was enough to successfully take charge of the king's hand and dare not ask for anything else, whether voluntarily or reluctantly. The nobles present saw that Leonor had successfully won over the river and dormitory and could only recognize the fact that the Baratheon dynasty was restabilized, and spoke with Oberyn and Met's call, Glory my king, glory my king, glory my king. With one shout after another, the sound gradually became neat, as if everyone had become a minister. Dysentery. After Leonor successfully announced the reduction of the imperial meeting, he retreated to the rear and gave the commander a look. When Dickon received Leonor's gaze, he naturally stepped forward to face everyone, spread out a scroll in his hand, looked at the long list above and began to read, In the name of the Andals, the Loynes, the king of the ancestors and the rulers of the 7 kingdoms, guarding Leonor Baratheon His Highness Oberyn Martell was named Duke of Qing City. Qing City and its taxes belong to it. This is to fulfill Leonor's declaration in the storm and reward those who have won the war in the Battle of Lannister. Oberyn Martell gets K-Rock City, Loras Tyrell gets Chicken Hall, Blue Road Talai gets Sassfield City, Westward Knight Abel Caranchi gets Silver Mountain City, Stormland Knight John Magwin gets the city of Feast Fire, Edmund Scallon gets the city of Brand, Rihan Rogmer gets the city of Goldfang, and Knight of the Northland Land, Randall Snow, gets the city of Cliff. Most of the cities in the western region were captured. But there were also some surprises, such as Oxford Town, Deep Mill City, Cock Valley City, Lannister Port and other places. These places were either killed by the lords by the knights in the west, or killed by Leonor himself, so all these territories belonged to the king personally. In addition to the well-known cities, there are many nobles and knights who have gained military achievements and obtained some small towns and manors in the western region. Not only that, the only exception is Luce Bolton of the North Terror Fort. No city was captured, but considering his outstanding performance among the princes in the northern border, Leonor rewarded him with 100,000 golden dragon as military expenses. All those who received the reward as they wished were very happy, while the noble knights who did not receive the territory complained, but this had nothing to do with Leonor. I've given you the opportunity. If you can't find the opportunity to kill people, what does it have to do with me? When the reward ceremony ends, the coronation ceremony and wedding are a successful end, and the next step is to eat and drink. Leonor didn't need to toast the visitors, it would only make people feel uneasy. So after eating something that was confirmed to be safe, He directly removed the golden crown on his head and asked Dickon to put it away, and asked our Rod to give it to him. Margaret sent a letter telling her that she had something to deal with and would go to find her when she was done, and then she took Brienne and Sand Snake away. The western region has been basically pacified now, and he is not ready to return to King's Landing City immediately. He has to stay here for 1 to 2 months. While the new nobles have not yet established rule, he will determine the policies here to ensure his subsequent control over the place. He rewarded the territory of the western region and gained some of the territory himself. Among them, the most valuable ones were Lannisterport and Shenju City. Shenju City is located on the important road of the western region and controls the gold leading to the King's Landing City. The Avenue and the port of Lannister have excellent estuaries and a population of over 100,000. Lannisterport and Deep Crystal City are both good places, but if they cannot be treated correctly, these places will not only not increase their strength, but will become a burden and must be handled with caution. Farm and continue farming. Leonor gave his own territory basic decree in response to the situation in the western region, requiring the new free people to declare their lands themselves, and they will ensure the ownership of these lands, and at the same time, in order to compensate them for the harm they suffered in the war. All taxes are exempted. This war destroyed the Lannister clan, but it also deceived the people in the west. Both the knights in the south and the barbarians in the north have the habit of plundering, which is also the fundamental reason why they obey military orders. If he grasped the military discipline in this area, his army would not be able to take over, so he could only make up for it now in addition to using the recognition of private ownership of the land to appease the people and stimulate production. Leonor also issued corresponding laws for mines in his territory, allowing private contracting and annual fees to be paid, and the mine ore will be purchased by him. Private sale is allowed. The Deep City and the Gyaogu City he obtained were not as rich as the Golden Teeth City and the Silver Mountain City, but they were rich in coal and iron ore, especially the Deep City, where the iron ore veins were extremely rich, which made him salt and iron. The official policy has added another weight. Chapter 84. Get the needs. Leonor worked in the room until late at night, wrote his decrees into a book overnight, and called Dickon and Arad to send them to the place to implement the relevant decrees for him. You have been by my side for a while. I have taught you what you should teach. This time it is a test for you. If it goes well, you will go to different places to be your own side after you come back. Leonor gave 2 personal drawing cake. Your Majesty. Arad held the decree in his hand. His face hesitated. Don't worry, I know what you are going to say. I saved your father back then, and I didn't plan to kill him this time. I asked Earl of Pixter that your father and your brothers are still alive. Leonor knew what Arad wanted to say. Thank you, Your Majesty. Arad couldn't speak and could only kneel down and kowtow. Then do you have anything to say? Leonor did not stop Arad and turned his head to look at Dickon next to him. I am loyal to the king. Dickon's answer was very standard, and it was obvious that it was taught by words and deeds. Very good. Since that's the case, then you can go. Leonor waved his hand. Arad and Dickon set out overnight. Arad went to Deep Crystal City, Dickon went to Corner Valley City, and Leonor personally implemented the laws on Lannister. Abea and Tyranny, go out to guard me, don't allow anyone to get close. Namelia, come and pinch my shoulders. Leonor sent Abea and Tyranny away and left alone Namelia. My Majesty, don't you, tonight. Namelia thought Leonor was really tired, and was about to step forward to rub his shoulders, but she didn't want to be caught by his wrist. What's wrong tonight? Leonor dragged Namelia into her arms, feeling her tall and orderly body curves. You're just getting married today. Namelia was so shocked by Leonor's sudden movement that she breathed rapidly. Isn't this more exciting? Don't you want to? Leonor only felt a fever all over his body, and even every invisible thought began to release pink. Everyone was having a feast tonight, and no one would disturb him. I'll do it myself. Namelia found Leonor's hand groping around her waist, as if she was looking for her belt. No, I want to do it myself. Leonor's voice was filled with a wicked smile, which made the atmosphere even more exciting in Qing City. There were so many clinking, clowns were juggling, singers were singing, and girls danced, accompanied by the surging tides, and all the joy was unusual, including Leonor. When time came to the second half of the night, Leonor asked Namelia to rest well, take care of her clothes, and lead Abea and Tyranny back to the wedding room with great energy. When he entered the door, he saw 2 maids guarding him. Let's go. Leonor waved his hand and asked the 2 maids to leave, then entered the inner room, and saw that Xia Rose had already changed into a green dress waiting for him. Your Majesty. Margaret suppressed her heartbeat, turned around and looked at Leonor. who was wearing black clothes, and stood up and saluted. "Yet. Let me see you." Leonor walked straight to Margaret. Compared to Namilia's tall figure and exotic style, Little Rose's body was full of nobility. They have similar figures, but Little Rose is shorter than Namilia and has not tattered legs. "Next time, I will let Namilia put on armor and battle skirt." Leonor, who approached Margaret, suddenly thought of a way to play. "Your Majesty, we can have a bed together." Margaret held her breath in the face of Leonor, who was approaching, a little expectant and a little scared. When Leonor heard Margaret's words, he knew that such a noble girl was inevitably taught by a nanny. She was far from comparable to an ignorant girl. She should have more tricks than Namilia. "I heard that Dorne's woman ate too much fire pepper, and she was as enthusiastic as fire." Leonor commented on her personal experience. She was very enthusiastic and was a little unfamiliar in other aspects. "Your Majesty," Margaret suddenly snorted coldly when she heard Leonor, and couldn't help but be stunned. What did she do wrong? Leonor turned around and walked to the bed and sat down, and asked Margaret with a cold face, "Come to me." Margaret was unable to be fooled by Leonor's appearance, and she was very nervous. What did she do wrong? "Come over." The sound of urging again made Margaret even more panicked. There was no way to go, so he could only walk in front of him. "Squat down." The weak noble girl followed Leonor's orders, and when she reached a certain point, her eyebrows slowly stretched out, and finally understood what the king was doing. "So I like this." Although he was secretly complaining about the king's strange preferences, Margaret had to serve him as he wanted and tried hard to please him. After all, without his seeds, Tyrell's next plan would not be easy to implement. One side should make every effort to obtain seeds, the other side should release their hobbies as much as possible, and everyone should take their needs, and just pass by overnight. The next morning, Leonor got up early. His energy and his body became stronger. "Thanks to the magic scroll given by Dickon, the dual cultivation method is truly a way to deceive me." Margaret was tossed all night and was still sleeping. Westeros had no custom of returning home and tribute. Leonor did not disturb her, so she put on her clothes and went for a walk. Qing City was quiet in the early morning. After a lively celebration, the whole city was drunk and unsuspecting, but fortunately no one dared to attack here. For the most ruthless thing in the world, Leonor led Abea and Tarini through the street, and his invisible spiritual thoughts penetrated his body. He swept around frantically and caught a seagull from the air. With a light movement of consciousness, he occupied the black and white seabird's body. "Well, this is the feeling of flying." Maio's invisible clouds flowed by, and her wings swayed gently. Leonor controlled the seabird's body and flew up and swept down, scanning the bird's eyes below mountains, rivers, and the blue sea ahead. After savoring the feeling of natural flying, Leonor retreated from the birds and fell back into the ground-still body. He suddenly flew out, passing through the walls and alleys, flying everywhere, enjoying himself, but he called Abba and Tarini, who were following him, knew nothing. Leonor was exerting his soul to the fullest. Suddenly he remembered that after returning to his body, he turned his head and asked the two sand snakes behind him, "Abea, Tarini, where have you been?" "We have been to Valentis, Mir, Tirosi." Abea saw Leonor walking on the street and suddenly stopped moving, and suddenly asked a question to herself, a little unclear, but answered truthfully, "There's a problem." "Well, I know, in the name of the mercenary group, right?" "How about being a mercenary?" Leonor nodded. Oberon's Sand Snake Group was the mercenary group he established when he traveled to the city-state of Essos to trade in the city-state of Essos. He also served in the Second Sun Group. "It feels not good to be a mercenary," Abea responded depressedly. "Do you know where the ferocious birds and beasts are there?" Leonor asked the question he wanted to ask the most. His soul has reached the possession realm and can already find birds of prey and beasts to practice external incarnation, as long as it is ferocious enough. Even if it is still impossible to defeat the fire-breathing dragon, as long as it is restrained and paired with a scorpion crossbow, hunting dragons is no problem. "Why are you asking this question?" Tarini showed a curious look. "Haha, I'm just curious. Which birds and beasts do you think are the most ferocious in the world?" "I mean, you have seen them," Leonor asked. "What I've seen should be the snake lizard and the pterodactyl." Tarini nodded surely after thinking about it. Chapter 85 The Vast World. In the world where Westeros is located, the dragon that can spit fire, is the strongest creature in the sky and the earth, but there are still some other creatures in other parts of the world, such as the Oriental Assassis in the south of the continent. There is a continent called Sothris, wandering with many powerful creatures on the continent of Essos, except for some lucky sailing adventurers who have arrived in Sorceress. They talk about their adventures there and what they have seen and heard. Tarini and Abea have never been to Sorceress, but they know that Sorceress, the ancestor of Aloynas, Queen Amelia, was defeated by Valilia in the past. He was wandering to Sorceress for a while and fought with the natives there, but was driven out by the other party. He eventually had to change the direction of his navigation and finally passed through the Stone Stairs Island to survive in Dorne. In addition to the literature, the Sand Snakes also followed Oberon to Braavos, visited the Neptune there, and saw the living snake lizards and the complete long-winged skeleton in the other party's beast garden. The adult snake lizard is twice as big as a lion, while the long-winged dragon has a body that is almost the same as a giant dragon. It has huge wings and body, a bird-like beak and sharp claws. It is said that its temperament is even more ferocious than that of a giant dragon. The bachelors of the Skulltown analyzed that the ancient Valyrian wizards may have made dragons with long-winged dragons. I really envy you. Your rich experience makes me yearn for sailing in a new continent. Leonor couldn't help but have an imagination when he listened to the descriptions of the Sand Snake sisters. The Valyrian wizard used the long-winged dragon to create dragons. This is a good idea. I will not transform it myself, but I can teach the strange beasts to visualize and practice. Can they cultivate their souls in this way, and then become the 8 demons and immortals in the Yangshan world? Voyage? New world? I don't know you. Abea sneered a little. These nobles were all brain sick and actually yearned for the experience of staying in a small place every day and night, and the bloody plague that was full of bloody plague land. That's really imaginative, but we don't have much experience, far less than our father. Tarini grabbed her unrestrained sister. The king just wanted to say something. Don't take it seriously, you said. Can you find a dragon in the continent that has not been discovered yet? Leonor had some thoughts again. There was a fog in Sorceress. Since there was a long Wedlian, is there any other giant dragon still alive? I don't know. Tarini shook her head directly. Who said this is good? Maybe there, maybe not, but I heard that in the north of Sorceress, opposite the Saffron Strait of Esthis, there is still there a new continent that has not been set foot on, and perhaps there is a dragon there. It is impossible to say. Haha, our existence is really small compared to this vast world. Leonor nodded. Whether it is Sothros or the unknown new world, he needs a ship to go there, and he must find a way to develop his national strength. Only when the country is strong can you do whatever you want with the vastness of the world. Leonor, Abea and Tarini walked and chatted in Qing City. On the other side, Margaret, who had recovered, woke up and found the newlywed husband's defeat. Don't, after asking the maid. Confirming that he didn't leave him, he breathed a sigh of relief and asked the maid to wash herself up and then go to see her grandmother Olena. Mrs. Olena lives in a courtyard in Qing City. When Margaret came, she was enjoying her own breakfast, some fried eggs and meat porridge made from wheat flour and loin, and figs served with meals. A strange smile appeared on her face when she saw the granddaughter, who was radiant, to say, "Good morning, my child, it seems you were very happy last night." I feel relieved. In addition to being an excellent king, that child is also a very good man. I mean, in bed, an excellent man must not only be able to ride a horse. I also have to ride a woman. Grandma, Margaret's first wedding night, hearing her grandmother's words, she couldn't help but exclaim. Her face turned red and she couldn't bear it. What's shy? Well, this is also a normal reaction. When I was as old as you, I thought about the affairs of men and women as sacred. What's that? Love. But my parents made a marriage for me. The other party was Dylan Targaryen, but that guy regarded the opposite sex as heresy, believing that same-sex is true love. The crazy Targaryen is not worthy of me. Even if he doesn't do that, I will let this marriage go. It wasn't the end. Olena talked about her old marriage, but Margaret was not impatient at all, and sat next to her with a smile and listened to her. Marguerite, you are a good child. If you get pregnant with a king's child early, your appearance will eventually grow old. Beauty is not your best weapon. Your uterus is. You must use it in time. If that king does not treat you, okay, you just drive him off the Iron Throne and take your child on it. Believe me, this works better than anything else. We are your strongest backing. Olena taught her granddaughter in the tone of someone who has experienced it. Yes, grandmother, but I heard that having a baby hurts. Margaret looked like a childlike fearful attitude. Of course it hurts. If you don't endure hardship, how can you feel the sweetness? Just like last night, you felt it. Olena put on a mysterious smile of an old driver, making Margaret even more shy. Depending on your appearance, that guy is doing very well, let me tell me. Olenna became even more interested when she saw her granddaughter's expression. I don't know if he did it on purpose. Margaret couldn't help but have a fever on her cheeks when she thought of her experience last night. What did he do? Olenna showed a puzzled face. I can't say it well. It was when he came back last night and ordered me, and the atmosphere made me very scared. He didn't hurt you, right? Olenna was shocked when she heard this. The king had no bad habits, no, although he has a stern face. His tone is cold and his actions are rough. He is generally gentle and does not cause any harm to me. Margaret shook his head quickly. Where are you? Olenna looked at her granddaughter seriously. Don't you have bad habits? Right, me? It feels very exciting. Margaret recalled her condition carefully and felt a strange feeling, but overall it was not bad now. Olenna didn't know what to say. She looked up and down with her old eyes, and it took a long time to say, Marguerite, if you suffer any harm, you must tell me in time. I know, grandmother. Never stop? Margaret nodded affirmatively and pronounced the tribe of the Terrier family in the River Bay. She is the rose of the High Court, and the rose is thorny. Come on. Don't shout such old slogans. What's the use of just enduring silently? If you really want to use your thorn to stab people, Olenna complained directly. Chapter 86 The usage of the former minister. The wedding ceremony ended, and the noble knights of various nobles began to leave Caer Rock City one after another, including Mrs. Olenna and other Tyrael family entourages. Only Miss Tyrael, who had already taken office as the king's hand and his guards, as well as Oberon, who was in charge of the chief inspector, and his serpent group were left behind. Leonor kept his promise and handed over the city with a golden palace and the residence to Oberon. Oberon didn't care and sealed the city to Barishad, making her the new one. The Duchess of Caen City, which surprised Leonor a little. He secretly asked Amelia behind his back if they had any discussions. After discussing, my father asked us for our opinions in advance. We agreed that this castle should be inherited by Bea. She is the oldest and most powerful among us, Amelia answered truthfully. Leonor's question, okay, Leonor had no choice. The Sand Snakes voted for a Bea themselves, and he couldn't say anything. Do you want me to get Caer Rock City? Amelia noticed Leonor's meaning. It's almost the same. If not, I will find a way to seal the summer hall to you another day. Leonor promised Amelia that she would also give her a duchess. Why? Amelia's gray eyes blinked, feeling a little moved, but she was more confused. Why she had to be a duchess? Because, I like the duchess. Leonor said some dirty words, which made Amelia blush at this, and then she stared at him fiercely. This guy is not as slutty as an ordinary noble, but he always likes to play with some weird things, not to mention Leonor's strange habits. Just saying that he continued to stay in the western region, Mess, the new king's hand on the other side, was very impatient. He asked him when he would return to King's Landing, and the Red Fort was the real palace. The place where the king is the palace. Leonor scoffed at Mess's words. Then are you going to stay here forever? Mess was stunned. Of course not. I have to deal with some things now. Lord Mess, you are here just in time. I have something to explain to you. Leonor looked serious. Please give me instructions. Mess came to his senses and stood up and asked Leonor to give in. It was the duty of the king's hand to complete the king's orders. I ask you to start immediately in the governance of the western frontier, including but not limited to the recovery of farming and mining production as soon as possible, and to clear out the remnants of Lannister. The goal of the general mission is to ensure the stability of the western frontier and allow the people here to eat enough. Fortunately, it can continue to export iron ore, coal mine, timber, grain and other resources to the king. I mean buying and selling, not simply paying tribute to the king. Leonor asked Metz his own governance requirements for the western frontier. Yes, Metz nodded without hesitation and agreed. Do you know where to start? Leonor was a little curious. Don't let the inflatable fish go. I don't know, but I can find people who know to do these things. Metz was full of confidence. Okay, then I'll ask Lord Oberon and his supervisors to supervise your work in the future. Leonor breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, that's it. If you can't do this, then just find a professional person to do it. Leonor suddenly had a task, and Metz didn't care about returning to King's Landing, and began to rush to find someone to start a plan to govern King's Landing here. Leonor sent Metz away, asked people to find Oberon, and assigned him a series of tasks to monitor the governance of the Western Front, including but not limited to whether the remnants of Lannister were eliminated, and the new rule here whether the nobles have pursued rebellion, and most importantly, whether the Western frontier governance activities led by Metz Tyrrell are qualified, whether the people are not full, whether the nobles have complaints, etc. I can't supervise the entire western border alone. A baron frowned when he heard this. He had only one person. How could he complete so many supervision tasks? This is exactly what you are called general inspector. You need to find someone to organize your own supervision team, use your means to build a monitoring system, and report the situation of western border governance to me in real time. Leonor reminded Oberon that although he had only one person, he could not be alone. This task is too troublesome. Can I let the nobles of Dorne come here to be the inspector? Oberon was not very satisfied and suggested to Leonor that he would transfer people from Dorne. Whatever you want, I just want the result. Leonor doesn't care who Oberon uses, he just wants the result. I understand. Oberon fell into deep thought. Are you going to dispatch people from Dorne? Leonor asked tentatively. What's the use? Will those guys complete the tasks I assigned in this foreign land? I think it's better to use the locals in the West than to use the donors. The Prime Minister's governance actions are directly related to the lives of the people in the West. The actions of Lannister's remnants cannot be counted on them. It requires finding some other people. Perhaps the surrendered Western nobles are good. Oberon clapped his hands and began to come up with a solution. Very good, my chief inspector. Leonor clapped his hands directly. A baron deserves to be the guy who built 6 iron rings in the school town. He has begun to sort out his work ideas and does not need to remind him by himself. Oberon was building his own plan, and looked up and saw Leonor looking happy, a little dissatisfied. I find you're becoming a little annoying now, my highness. The king is not a clown, and I can't always make you laugh. Leonor laughed loudly, and the laughter kept echoing in the house. As the king, if he couldn't spare his ministers, what's the difference with a clown? HMPH. Oberon snorted coldly to express his dissatisfaction, and had to turn around to complete the assigned task in this way. Leonor drove his 2 former ministers to make plans for him, pull up people and teams, and urge the nobles from all over the country to mobilize the people to cultivate farmland and reopen mines, and restore the war to the western border. Destruction ensued. The harm suffered by the people in the western region in the war. After a month of governance, all work in the western region was carried out in an orderly manner, especially Arad and Dickon. The 2 of them carried out very effective governance of Shenju City and Jyaoga City, allowing the nearby people to surrender and rebuild farmland. He also found some western knights who had been cut into civilians to contract local iron ore and coal mines. The 2 wrote to Leonor to report the good news, saying that the local mine had officially begun to release mines. Leonor was very satisfied with the results of Arad and Dickon's work. He wrote a letter to encourage the 2 to continue to work and let them connect with Dorne and King's Landing to the handover between the iron ore and the coal mine, and not to treat those things unfairly. The Westerners who contracted the mines could promise to restore their knighthood and mobilize them appropriately. After sorting out the series of work in the western region, Leonor basically had no worries and began to organize the army and prepare to return to King's Landing City. Chapter 87 Dedur. When Leonor came, he walked out of the Golden Avenue from the Lion's Gate of King's Landing, then passed through the deep Crypto City to Lannister Harbor, and finally broke through Caen City. When he returned to King's Landing, his queen, prime minister, and chief inspector, and most of the troops still returned to King's Landing from this road, but he did not follow this road. Leonor chose to start from the east gate of Caen City on the route back to King's Landing, along Hegian Avenue, cross the Golden Tooth City to the River City, and then return to King's Landing through Herrenberg. This route is a bit circling, but the advantage is that he can go to Ben Liachang to meet the princes of the northern border and confirm the life and death of Ed Stark and his wife, and whether Robb Stark and his northern border princes had any. The heart of the minister with such a goal, he set out with 50 guards including Brienne, Abaya, Tyrion and Emilia. When Leonor marched west from Golden Avenue, it was difficult to see ordinary civilians along the way except for the riots. However, this time from Hegian Avenue to the east, the west, which had been managed, has recovered a lot of complexion. There are already farmers on both sides of the avenue. Those pale and thin farmers used simple wooden farm tools to cultivate fields and plant crops such as wheat, oats, hops and grapes. When they stopped working, they were full of vigilance for Leonor and his party who had passed by. Your Majesty, your kindness allows them to work again. Although Brienne was warned by the farmer, she was rarely happy and flattered Leonor from the bottom of her heart. Leonor ignored Brienne and retracted his gaze of the field, where he saw the green wheat seedlings, the sharp vines and the hop seedlings in the eyes of Brienne and others. The ability of farmers to work in the fields with peace of mind is the knight fulfilling his duties to defend the land, and the manifestation of the mercy of the king and the nobles. But in Leonor's view, this is not the case. Leonor presided over farming production in the midsummer hall. After the farmers there got their fields, they would not grow hops and grapes that were not edible. Even wheat and oats were grown in less. They could grow pumpkins and corn. Because pumpkin and corn grow cycles short, it can provide a large amount of food in the short term. Only after storing enough grain, farmers will choose to grow wheat, oats, and then mix pumpkin, corn and chickpeas, because the excess grain can be used to feed livestock. How much meat the livestock grows, wheat and oats can not only make wine, but also improve food, but they only need to be processed at the Lord's mill. Farmers know what they want and how to farm, but what about now? The Western region has just experienced war. The farmers will not know how to farm, nor will they not know that the most important thing to do is to protect the food first, but they planted acre of hops and grapes. These crops can only make wine, but not the only reason to fill your stomach is that the lords ask for it, and they have no right to decide what to plant in the field. Policies must be set up to correct this situation, while continuing to deprive the nobles of ownership of the land. Those insects on land is a waste. It's a pity that the climate in Westeros is judging by years. As long as it is not the winter year, as long as it is not the area in the northern region that requires cold-resistant crops, you can farm all year round. As long as it is not the kind of land-picking climate, crops can be planted at any time. Sitting and guarding such a treasure land, Westeros is recognized as the most populous King's Landing city, with a total population of only 500,000, and the total population of the entire continent is estimated to not exceed 10 million. It has been more than 10,000 years since the ancestors arrived in this land. After 10,000 years of development, the total population of the mainland has not exceeded 10 million. What is the aristocrats who ruled here? How can they do it when they are with the insects? Good country. He cursed the noble worm in his heart, but unfortunately this matter was not easy to resolve in a short period of time. Leonor used his heel to lightly knock the horse under his crotch, urging the horse's hooves to speed up the trip. Except for the Deep Crypt City, Cock Valley City, Lannister Harbor and Oxford Town in the west, all other places have been rewarded, and the nobles who obtain the land will reward their own land to other nobles or not. Under such heavy sharing, a feudal system was formed that the vassal of my vassal is not my vassal. Even the king can only govern his own territory, and can only give some suggestions or guidance to other territories, and cannot even say order. Now the new ruler of the western region is actually considered or obedient, and has governed the fiefdom of the western region according to Leonor's requirements. He cannot even point fingers at how others farm or mine, so this matter needs to be discussed in the long term. Leonor only brought 50 cavalry to travel, and did not want to cause trouble, so he chose to be invisible. He led his men to ride the horse forward. After about half an hour, a team of about 10 people rushed towards the road ahead. The full-armored knights were holding a flag with a 7-pointed sword. Well, Leonor saw the flag in front of him, directly held the horses and waited and stopped the team to avoid rushing with the other party. When the knights in the distance saw the situation, they also held the horses. After a burst of shouts, the two teams slowly approached. I am Aldous Bran, the knight of Count Rogmer and Goldfang. The leader of the cavalry was a young man, and he nodded to Leonor immediately and reported his name. Baratheon, the king leads the knight, went to the city of Borty to visit Duke Horsetelly. Lord Bran, where are you going? Leonor stopped Brienne's name. Action. He made up his identity for himself. There are few people around him now. If he cannot show his identity, try not to show his identity and avoid attracting assassination. I am very honored to see you. I am also on the orders of Count Rogmer to go to the nearby manor to hunt a crazy beast. Knight Aldous saw the rights and told him where he was. So that's the case. Can I go with you? Leonor was intrigued. He remembered that Rihan Rogmer was originally an ordinary knight in Hegian, but he was rewarded for killing the original Lord of Golden Tooth City. He had already pulled up his team and completed the governance of the fiefdom. What kind of person is this? Aren't you carrying the king's order? Aldous frowned. It's right. The king also issued an order to me, asking me to observe the governance results of the Western Front. This does not conflict with a mission of visiting the Duke of Horst, and can be carried out at the same time. Leonor directly found a reason for himself. So that's the case. If so, then you can go to Bader Manor with me. Aldous suddenly realized, glanced at Leonor and his party in full armed manner, thinking that it might be good to bring them with him in this way. Leonor turned his horse's head halfway and went to the Bader Manor with Aldous. The Knight of Golden on the way, Leonor found out about the situation from Aldous, and knew that the young knight was originally a hedge knight, and was rewarded for his bravery in combat. This time he was assigned to clean up the madness in his manor for the Lord Count Rogmer. Wild beast, what kind of person is Count Rogmer? Leonor asked about Rogmer's situation. Lord Lehon is a devout believer of the seven gods, and is also a loyal and brave knight. As a vassal knight, Aldous did not hesitate to appreciate the Lord, but as he spoke, he suddenly sighed. Except for the Lord's Day, a little obsessed with women. Who doesn't yearn for love? Leonor smiled. How can obsessed with women be considered a shortcoming? As long as it is not strong, it is just human nature. But Aldous subconsciously wanted to say something, but suddenly realized that this was the king's night, and he could not talk about the Lord's affairs everywhere, which was not in line with the knight's creed, so he hurriedly stayed. Leave your mouth, Sir Aldous, you don't trust me. Leonor saw that Aldous had no scheming, but he had a good impression of Rogmer, but he was still curious about Rogmer's affairs. Judging from the words of the young knight, that guy seemed to like it. It's so gossipy for someone you shouldn't like. Chapter 88 Courage is comparable to all. Knight Aldous was a young man. He had no scheming, otherwise he would not have leaked the matter of the Lord. Leonor said a few words next to him and coaxed him to tell the matter out. Rogmer did fall in love with someone he shouldn't like, the most beautiful daughter of Lord Wade Frey, Earl of Twins, who has been betrothed to Rosalind Frey, the young wolf owner of Northland. What a guy. I like the big wolf woman. Leonor was surprised at first when he heard the news of Aldous' gossip, and then pondered, as if it was a little wrong due to his appearance. Robb Stark did not embark on the original path of fate and died tragically in the bloody wedding. His engagement with Rosalind Frey continued, and the covenant between North and Twins was strengthened. The northern border is a special place in Westeros, which is at the northernmost end of the existing country of mankind. The environment is very harsh, and roads to the south are blocked by the Swamp Neck and Twin Cities, not to mention Neck Snake. The Lita family there is already loyal to Winterfell City. Now the Frey family in Twin City has formed an alliance with Stark. That does not mean that as long as the princes in the northern border are willing, they can take troops south at any time. No more resistance. The Tully family in the river-flowing city was wearing a pair of pants with Stark. The princes in the East Valley were swaying. If there was a rebellion in the north, after the army was driven south, these people would have already been able to join them. The power to shake the country. I was negligent. I was always thinking about cleaning up Lannister and guarding against the Tyrion family, but I forgot about the existence of the Wolf Osprey. Leonor realized it later and said he was careless in his heart, and then began to think of a solution. Master Burrow, Aldous called Leonor with a little nervousness. What's wrong, my lord Aldous? Leonor came to his senses and asked Aldous with a smile. If I tell you, don't tell others. Aldous reminded him with a little nervousness. Swear in the name of the seven gods. Leonor pointed at the seven gods without hesitation, and said to Brienne, Abea and others who were staring behind him with big eyes. You are not allowed to tell this matter out loud either. Brienne and others nodded in agreement, but Aldous on the other side turned green. He turned to look at his companions and saw that these people looked different. Aldous is your companion, please don't betray him. Leonor saw Aldous' ugly face and turned his head to ask his companions. Of course, the Knights of Goldfang City all agreed that no matter what they would do, they would agree not to disclose it. Now seeing that Leonor had dealt with his companions, Aldous' face looked much better, but after learning from this lesson, he did not dare to talk more on the way and led Leonor and his companions to the Bader Manor. Bader Manor is a manor belonging to Rogmer, the Earl of Goldtooth City. The main body is a piece of land sealed with wooden fences, which contains several thatched houses and a few small houses. They live in about dozens of villagers. The villagers took care of the large area of land around them. They originally planted beets, grapes and other crops for the Lord, but now the land is deserted and everyone is hiding in the house. After Aldous brought his men into the fence house, he immediately found the manor's supervisor and asked him where the crazy beast was. That's a group of monsters. The sparse head of the head corrected the statement first. They are a group of wolves that are not afraid of humans. Several of us have gone out and been attacked. Last night, a giant wolf with yellow eyes rushed forward to it. Entering the village, it was as big as a horse, and it dragged Ricci away directly. The seven gods were on it. When we found him, his whole stomach was empty. The boss kept drawing 7 pointed stars on his chest, obviously because he was afraid of being anxious. It seemed as if to prove the boss's words. A whimpering wolf howl came from outside the village under the blue sky and the sun. The sound of wolf howlings came, making people feel chilled indoors. Aldous looked at the direction where the sound of wolf howlings came, and showed a look of surprise on his face, shocked that the beasts dared to provoke humans so much, as the same size as a horse. "Are you sure?" Leonor confirmed to the boss. "Yes, it is definitely as tall as a horse, and swears in the name of the 7 gods." The boss pointed at the 7 gods and swore that he did not lie. "It's a dire-wolf. A dire-wolf outside the Great Wall." Leonor ignored the boss and explained to Aldous that a wolf as big as a horse is a dire-wolf, a species outside the Great Wall in the north. The Stark family is exactly the same as that of a horse. Use this wolf as the family emblem and flag. "I know, I have seen such a wolf. Beside Robb Stark, it must be brought by those northern barbarians. In the name of knights, I must kill the beast and peel it off." Aldous spitted. "Do you have experience in dealing with dire-wolf?" Leonor asked. "No." Aldous and his companions all shook their heads. "Where are you?" Leonor turned around and asked Brienne, Abea and others. "No, but I dealt with the wolves on my way to Valentis." Abea said that she had experience in dealing with the wolves. "That's easy to do. Think of a way. Kill all these wolves as much as possible, especially the dire wolf." Leonor asked Abea to find a way. "This is easy to deal with. We have swords, spears, bows, and armor. Just find a living person to be bait and attract those animals." Abea's answer was very concise. Her words, the eyes of others outside Leonor naturally looked at the trembling old housekeeper. "No," Aldous shouted before Leonor, rejecting most people's ideas. "This matter was handed over to me by Lord Earl. How can I let others replace it? Let me be the bait." Leonor originally proposed to use horses as bait, but when he saw Aldous take the initiative to ask for bait, he couldn't help but look at him with admiration. This guy was a little brave. "You really want to go?" Aldous' companion was suspicious. Leonor shook Abea a wink, telling her not to speak for the first time, and intimidated Aldous with bad taste. "The Delvin is very smart. He needs to take off his armor and be used as bait. And he can't bring weapons, otherwise he will definitely not be able to draw it out." "I'll go." Aldous was a little scared, but he gritted his teeth and nodded. "Haha." Leonor smiled. "It was quite interesting, Master Burrow." "Why are you laughing?" Aldous was embarrassed to be laughed. "Go and bring my horse." Leonor did not answer, but instead asked a guard to lead the horse. "Your horse?" Aldous was unknown. "It's better to use my horse as bait." Leonor pointed at the yellow strong horse led by the guards. This is a good horse. How much does it cost?" Aldous looked at the yellow war horse led by the guards and was attracted suddenly. He couldn't help swallowing his saliva. A horse with smooth lines and strong hooves. Courage is comparable to all. Leonor smiled. There are many horses, but few people with courage. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Wolf Hunting. Courage is comparable to everything. Leonor made Aldous blush with one sentence, and the other knights looked at each other, showing various expressions, some of whom were jealous, some admired, and some disapproved. No matter what, the problem of bait was solved. After discussion, the plan to hunt and kill the wolf pack was determined. The young knight Aldous did not use it as bait, so he tried his best to let him and his brothers attack. He claimed that he would chop the giant wolf with his own hands, and Leonor agreed because he lacked a mount. Leonor did not go hunting wolves with him, but stayed behind, stood at the fence gate of the village, and watched Aldous and others drive his mount into the woods. He looked at him with his eyes with a slight closure. The soul naturally leaves the body, and quickly passes through the fields and enters the dense forest. He did not borrow the body of the yellow horse. His transparent soul naturally floated in the air. He watched the leisurely horse eat the grass in the forest. When the thoughts moved, his soul naturally dispersed, but the thoughts expanded like ripples. Soon, his mind found a gray wolf in a dense tree somewhere. It was an adult wolf. It was lying under the tree to bask in the sun. Suddenly, his ears moved, his head raised and his nose moved, and he smelled the wind. The smell of smell comes following the smell of the wind. The gray wolf jumped into the dense forest and found the yellow horse gnawing on the grass in the forest. The beast did not attack immediately. It shook its nose and found a human being peeping in the distance. Then it directly turned around and slipped away. It's very smart. Leonor hung in the air, his figure transparent like a ghost. He watched the gray wolf slip away from him, and his thoughts followed its footsteps. As he walked through the rocks of the forest, Go to a stream. Around the stream, about hundreds of wolves were playing. When they saw the gray wolf return, they were slightly turbulent and squeezed over to sniff and whisper at it. The gray wolf put away his ears and used a pair of them. He squeezed through the pack of wolves with a well-behaved look and came to a rock above the water where a gray wolf the size of a horse was staying. The huge gray wolf lies on the rock, with elegant figures, and two white wolves with different figures far exceeding their peers were playing in front of it. White wolf slightly smaller than it was squeezed beside it, constantly using its head. It's a whole family to please. The giant wolf was half closing his eyes, enjoying the happiness of the family, and lazily glanced at the tribe. When its eyes glanced at the gray wolf crowd, its golden eyes suddenly opened wide, and all its hair stood. He raised his black lips, revealing his white fangs, and his eyes were straight on the gray wolf that was coming, or Leonor above the gray wolf. See me. Leonor floated over the wolf pack, and was surprised to see the giant wolf who was angry and staring at him. The wolf cub could see his possessed realm. There is something in the soul. The giant wolf stood up from the rock, spitting out a threatening roar, warning the empty soul not to approach. This is not possible. You have already started to eat people. How can I keep you from harming the world again? Leonor ignored the threat of the giant wolf, and his soul drifted closer to him. The giant wolf could no longer bear the invisible soul approaching, and its bodies jumped violently. And its fangs spread wide and bit the approaching ghost. The invisible soul cannot be bitten, but in Leonor's sight, an invisible heat rose from the giant wolf's body, which contained a brutal and greedy aura. With its thrust, it was like a steel knife. Punch your mind. If it is the soul of an ordinary person, he will be injured just this time. After returning to the body, he will feel nauseous and vomiting, and his eyes will be filled with Venus. Fortunately, Leonor is not an ordinary person. When Leonor faced the evil spirit that was rushing to face, he blew out a yin wind, which was blown away. The blood evil spirit of the beastly mixed with Qi and blood like a steel knife. Bang! The giant wolf pounced on the ground and fell to the ground. The hair that had originally exploded suddenly became dark and dull, and the whole wolf shook like a dog falling into the water. After a while of rest, the giant wolf regained its energy, and its hair shook again, rolling around like a steel needle, and pounced on Leonor again, but he stopped playing with the beast. Let's go first. Leonor was too lazy to attach to the beast's body, and his body shook and ran away in the cold wind. The giant wolf was teased out of its fierceness. Seeing the invisible thing flying away in the air, it was unwilling to let go. It directly made a wolf howl, which caused the wolf pack to respond one after another, and then began to pursue it in a mighty manner. Animals are animals. Leonor glanced at it, and saw the timber wolves howling one after another. He couldn't help but shake his head. With a moving thought, his soul dissipated instantly at the entrance of the village. Leonor's soul returned to his body and opened his eyes. He first listened to the wolf howlings that were rising and falling in the distance, and then rushed to Brienne next to him for a bow and arrow. His mount was taken as bait, and the bow and arrow weapons on it were held in his hands by Brienne, Abea and others. After getting a bow and arrow from Brienne, Leonor came to the entrance of the village and saw a rustling in the dense forest at the entrance of the village from afar. There were even shouts of scolding from afar, followed by the muffled sound of swords and body attacks. After a while of chaos, some wolves jumped out of the dense forest, some fled with their tails, and some surrounded animals. Among them, the largest gray dire wolf, with his eyes open, and directly headed towards Leonor at the entrance of the village. Run over, HMPH. Leonor saw the giant wolf standing upright with gray hair, snorted coldly, and drew the big red and white bow into full moon. When the giant wolf approached, the bowstring in his hand blew, and the arrow snorted. Fly out! The giant wolf running quickly fell to the ground, and fell a few times. Finally, it rolled softly into farmland. It was rolled up on its head, and a feather arrow was inserted into its right socket. Most of the arrow shaft was stuttered. Wearing the brain stem, it's really good. Leonor shot the giant wolf with an arrow and looked forward and saw that the giant wolf's fur was not cut, and it was even the fluffy that was angry before death. He couldn't help but nodded slightly. Yes, good materials, master. Burrow. Aldous came over from a distance. His armor was covered with the wolf blood, and the sword he was holding was even more bloody, and he obviously killed a lot. Sorry, I shot this beast to death. Leonor raised the red and white recurved bow in his hand at Aldous. Your mount was bitten to death. Aldous did not answer, but only smiled bitterly. "It's enough to compensate." Leonor patted the corpse of the dire wolf. This dire wolf is considered an alien species. In addition, the fierce aura on its body is excellent for use as a refining material. The fur can be made into fight. The body protects the body. Bones and wolf teeth can also be made into arrows or other magic weapons that can shoot souls. If you can capture the fire alive and offer it, you will definitely be able to quench a top-quality sword. You can take it. Aldous felt relieved when he saw Leonor not pursuing the mount. Chapter 90 Rumors of Golden Teeth City. The crazy beast is faster and more fierce than humans, and has sharp minions, but this is useless. No matter how strong the minions cannot penetrate steel, it is in vain. No matter how fierce the spirit is, it will be defeated when facing the steel knife and the iron sword. Hundreds of wolves of size were surrounded by more than 50 knights. After a while, only a few lucky wolves escaped, and all the others were killed. There were a few cars of corpses loaded, and the largest one, the Ice Row Wolf, the farm car in the manor, could not hold its body at all, so Leonor could only ask the guards to peel it on the spot. The dismantled dire off. The wolf meat was distributed to the farmers of the Bader Manor, and the fur and bones were wrapped up and rolled up by Leonor because the mount was bitten to death by the wolves. When he set off again, Leonor rode with an Amelia, and he had to rush under the noses of the riders who were walking with him, which was very exciting and enjoyable. He planned to buy another mount after he arrived in Goldwood City, and then enter the river to go to the River City, but when he arrived in Goldwood City, he got new news through Aldous. Duke of Horse Tully in the Flowing City has passed away, and his grandson, Robb Stark, did not catch up with his funeral, because the Callan Bay of the Nexarid family was 2 weeks ago by the Iron Captain of the Iron Islands. Victorian Greyjoy led his army to capture it. Next, Callan Bay is the only channel connecting the north and the south. The back road of my hometown was cut off. Robb Stark led his army back north overnight. He didn't even care about his parents, who were unknown to life and death, let alone dying of illness. Grandfather 2 weeks ago, Leonor calculated the time. At that time, he was still besieging Caen City. Now the Northern Army has returned to Callan Bay. He only learned the news when he arrived in Golden Tooth City. The transmission efficiency of the news was too slow. "I missed the princes in the northern border." Leonor realized it later and felt a little regretful, but he was more contemplating how he would deal with the Stark family and other princes in the northern border at this time. The princes of the northern border did not come except Luce Bolton of the Horror Fort, including Robb Stark himself, and the Frey family in the Twin City they actively won over. If the Iron Islands captured Callan Bay, then the northern border from the south was unobstructed, which in his opinion was the manifestation of the unjust intention. Leonor believes in Ed, who has a high moral level, but he does not agree with his way of doing things. Robb Stark does not even have the morality of his father, so how can people believe him? In particular, there are rumors that he had made several engagements in Hiji, and it is rumored that Robb Stark not only married Rosalind Frey himself, but also married his sister Sansa to Loras Tyrell of the Tyrell family, and made his cousin Robert Aij Arlen married his young sister Ariel. Leonor will be skeptical about this rumor. If Robb Stark really proposes an engagement with the Tyrell family and the Elend family, they are likely to agree to it. The Tyrell family will need help to consolidate Margaret's queen status, and the eastern border will also need the northern border as a backing. The princes of the northern border have retreated, the old Tully is dead, and Edmu automatically succeeds as Duke of Benlu City. And it is no longer interesting to go there. Faced with various situations, Leonor decisively chose to terminate his trip, bought a mount from Goldeo City and began to lead the team back to King's Landing City. No matter how the princes marry an ally, strengthening themselves is his best way to respond. When Leonor left, Aldous, the Knight of Goldfang City, came to see him off, thanked him for helping him in the Bader Manor, and asked you if he could come to King's Landing to find him under the tree at the intersection of Hegian Avenue. Leonor saw Aldous wanting to go to King's Landing City, and asked with a smile, "What are you going to go to King's Landing, Mr. Barlow?" The war between His Majesty the King to conquer the Western Front has ended. The knight's courage is useless here. "I want to go to King's Landing to take a look." Aldous was open and did not hide his thoughts. He is still very young, and wants to go around and see if he can find a better lord along the way. The young knights could still see the difference between Leonor. This guy brought more than 50 fully armed minions, and there were also female knights. This was not a team that ordinary nobles could have. Haha. Leonor saw Aldous say it bluntly, smiled but said nothing, turned around and waved to Brienne, asked for a bag of golden dragons from her, and handed it directly to Aldo in front of C. The young knight was stunned by the purse handed over by Leonor. "Please keep it. Young knight, you must understand that your courage will never be extinguished by need. A man can always come forward when he needs it." Leonor said, "Less than 50 of them." The golden dragon was put in Aldous' hands and reminded, "These golden dragons are used to strengthen themselves. Brave is of course important to the knights, but knowledge is even more essential. The wise and brave knight is the future of the kingdom." Feeling the heavy money bag in his hand and listening to the man in front of him, the young knight Aldous couldn't help but feel his eyes soar. He wanted to say something grateful, but found that he couldn't speak at all. A person will encounter many things in his life. In short, you must stay brave and nothing can stop you. Leonor clenched his fists at Aldous to motivate him. "Yes, my lord." Aldous nodded in tears. He felt that no one had been so good to him since he was a child. "Okay, let's go. Remember, strengthen your knowledge. See you in King's Landing." Leonor patted Aldous, left the goodbye period, turned around and called Brienne and others to leave, leaving only the youth. The knight looked away from the tree by the roadside. The team slowly walked away, and when the young knight behind him was only a small dot left, Brienne leaned forward and asked Leonor in curiosity, "Really? Your Majesty, what's true or false?" Leonor was stunned by the female knight's sudden question. "The future of the kingdom requires a wise and brave knight." Brienne was very serious. "Of course, wise and brave people are always the future," Leonor answered affirmatively, "but the premise is that they will not die and have good opportunities. Otherwise, they will be as talented as Zhu Juan, and they will have to be in Nanyang if they don't meet Liu Xiansu. Work hard, then I need to learn knowledge, too." Brienne was very serious. "Okay, I'll arrange for you to study with Berliston. Do you still have to be a royal guard?" Leonor nodded and asked Brienne whether she was keeping her original intention. "Of course, my heart remains unchanged." Brienne hurriedly expressed her intentions, and her original intention was unshakable. "That's even better. Berliston is also the captain of the Royal Guard. There are some positions vacant in the Royal Guard. Next, I will ask for additional information. You have a chance." Leonor drew a cake for Brienne. "I haven't started learning yet. Is this job?" Brienne was a little nervous. "Of course there is no problem." Leonor was amused by Brienne's appearance. In his opinion, the Royal Guard had no value at all. The new Royal Guard would be good at loyalty and command ability, and Brienne's loyalty would definitely meet the standards. Chapter 91 Return to the King and Chapter X27, S Leader. As the spring breeze blew, Leonor led his team across the Hegiandi back to the king's leadership, and appreciated the customs of Hegiandi along the road. Unlike the western border where I had just experienced war, the overall environment of Hegiandi is relatively peaceful, especially in the area south of the Hongcha River. The wheat seedlings here are yellow in the farmlands, and it is already time to harvest. The chickpeas are hanging on the branches. Some manors even raise pigs and sheep. These animals are not visible in the western region because no matter which side is, the army likes to plunder these movable animals without waste of effort to transport them and eat meat. Leonor tried some stewed pork elbows from Hegiandi in the inn. The taste was not good. The residents of Hegiandi could not afford spices and condiments such as fire pepper, chili, sugar, and they did not know how to slap pigs. This makes the pork they raise look sexy, but for ordinary people, it is already a rare meat food. You can build up the sugar production and breeding industry when you go back. Leonor made a decision in his heart, not only to make the people full, but also to make the people eat well. Only by allowing the people to feel happiness and appreciate the beauty of life can they have more motivation to create the future, and the country can prosper with the dust along the way. Leonor spent 13 days crossing the Hegiandi. After entering Wangling, he went to the main salt-producing land of Yanchang Town. Yanchang Town is very popular today. Thousands of salt workers work day and night. Large and small brine pools have been opened at the entrance of the Hongcha River. The seawater is introduced into it and precipitated into brine, and the brine is poured into the salt field again. The drying yard or iron pot is boiled into salt by exposure to sunlight or firewood, and is eventually transported to designated locations for sale. With daily supply exceeding demand. After visiting Yanchang Town, Leonor continued to head south and finally returned to King's Landing on the 7th day. Compared to the time of separation, the large wilderness in the north of Junlin City has now been reclaimed. Even the war did not prevent his land policy from being implemented by Berliston, Dorrit, Vincent and others. The farmers who shared the land actively opened up land and had the right to decide what to plant in their own land. The people of King's Landing are no more than those of the Midsummer Hall. They do not have an urgent food crisis, so they do not choose to harvest more corn and pumpkin, but plant more valuable wheat and chickpeas. Those crops have already grown a little. Just wait for the ears to mature. Okay. Leonor stood among the heavy wheat fields. Nothing made him happier than these green wheat seedlings. If some were edited, they would be chickpea seedlings with purple flowers that formed into pieces. These are food, the guarantee of life, and the guarantee of the country. Out of joy at the changes in King's Landing City, Leonor did not enter the city immediately, but instead circled around King's Landing City, especially paying attention to the farmland conditions on both sides of the Hishu River. After seeing the pastoral scenery, Leonor entered the city from the King's Gate in King's Landing City, crossed a Fisherman's Square along the Lin River, and finally returned to Hongbao to reveal his identity and received an extremely enthusiastic response. Dang, dang, dang. The cheering guards rang the big bell in the Red Fort, and the bell rang throughout the King's Landing City, declaring to the people of the city that the king had returned to the Red Fort. Leonor returned to the Red Castle, after a simple washing, took off his armor, put on a black and gold robe, hung a golden ribbon, and had a golden crown in the shape of 7 pointed stars, deer antlers and trees. Come to King's Hall. Countless twisted blades were twisted together. 200 years later, some kings used their lives to sharpen the sharpness of those blades. Now this throne looks like a high-backed chair made of countless iron bars. Lonely stop on the higher level. Leonor looked at the throne and walked up the steps step by step. Finally, he turned around and sat firmly on the throne, and pressed his back against the chair. The Iron Throne's feeling is not good, and it is lonely, but the feeling of being alone and looking down on everything is very good, making people grasp everything in their hearts. Leonor silently felt a domineering feeling of a lonely man. A sudden call came from the guards of the King's Hall, and his ministers in King's Landing had been summoned. In addition to the Prime Minister Mysterio, the Prime Minister of the new Royal Conference, the Chief Inspector Baron Mardell, and the Great Knight Ballistan Sirmi, there are also the Intelligence Manager of the Old Royal Conference, and his confidant Storedin Vincent. All the main ministers in King's Landing came to the King's Hall and stood bustling together to receive the King's review. Leonor sat upright on the Iron Throne, looking down at his ministers from a high place, sighing in his heart. It's still difficult to govern the country by himself, my adults. Leonor clapped his hands, attracting the eyes of all the ministers. From now on, in addition to the 3 ministers of the new imperial meeting, 9 ministers will be appointed, namely the Minister of Agriculture, Finance, Intelligence, Law, Etiquette, Foreign Affairs, Military Affairs, Guard Commander, and Taxation Minister. Your Majesty, what is the difference between these ministers and the 3 ministers of deliberation? Mysterio couldn't wait. He originally thought that reducing the personnel of the imperial meeting to make the power more concentrated, but suddenly these personnel were increased and the power was diluted again. Minister of Affairs is only responsible for handling affairs and gives his own opinions in his profession. He is not responsible for decisions on matters. All matters are still decided by the 3 ministers before the king. You decide, and my signature will take effect. Leonor's expressionless face reply, yes. Mess breathed a sigh of relief, and he still had power in his hands. My Majesty, what is the difference between the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Taxation, Minister of Military Affairs and the Commander of the Guard, Minister of Law and Minister of Etiquette? Oberlin stepped forward and bowed his chest and raised his doubts about the 9 ministers in charge of affairs. The Minister of Finance is responsible for the statistics of expenses. The Minister of Taxation is responsible for tax collection and money extraction. The Minister of Military Affairs is responsible for training the army, and the Commander of the Guards is responsible for guarding the city. The Minister of Law formulates detailed legal provisions, and the Minister of Etiquette is responsible for handling national ceremonies and norms of conduct of noble knights. Leonor patiently expressed his plans. Thank you, my king. Oberon bowed and retreated back. My Majesty, what are the Minister of Agriculture and Foreign Affairs responsible for? And who will be the Minister of Service? Ballistan stepped forward and asked again. The Minister of Agriculture is responsible for technological breakthroughs and applications in industries such as farmers and blacksmiths, while the Minister of Foreign Affairs is responsible for foreign affairs. As for the candidates for these ministers, except for the Minister of Intelligence, which is served by Varys and the Commander of the Guard, Dorit, all other positions are suspended. I will issue an announcement. If you have a wise man, you can recommend it. I will never be stingy. Wang Xianming, I have an excellent nobleman recommending it to you. Ballistan was convinced and began to recommend talents for Leonor, who, Leonor was a little surprised. Is there someone talented so soon? Barry Dondarrion, Earl of Black Harbor. Balliston expressed a name. What's the best thing about him? Leonor raised his eyebrows slightly. He performed well in the rebellion of the Deer Antlers. It was he who organized personnel to participate in the war in time that he saved the Mudgate from being captured and opened by the Deer Antlers. Balliston expressed the achievements of the Earl of the Blackport. Excellent talent. Can he train the army? Leonor's eyes lit up. The leader of the Flagless Brotherhood is indeed powerful and can shine anywhere. Balliston hesitated. The Earl of Black Harbor performed well, but he was not very clear about the ability to train the army. Call him. I want to ask in person. Leonor was very excited and decided to have an interview in person. Chapter 92 Talent. Barry Dondarrion, a man with golden red hair and a handsome face, was about 20 years old. When he walked into the king's hall with his purple cloak, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Barry Dondarrion, I've seen your majesty. Barry shook off his purple cloak and saluted Leonor on the Iron Throne on one knee. Full it off. Barry Dondarrion of Black Harbor, my great knight, Balliston, recommended you to me, saying that you performed well in the rebellion of the Antlers, and I am considering what position to grant you. Tell me, what are your specialties? Leonor directly opened the point and let Barry, who had a purple cloak like a peacock, introduce himself. Your Majesty, as you can see, our Dondarrion family ruled the Black Harbor in the frontier for generations, so my people and I have strong bodies. Barry Dondarrion stood up without any fright. At the same time, start introducing yourself. Healthy and strong, well-born, well-educated. Barry Dondarrion introduced his situation in a brief manner. Very good. Leonor nodded, not saying anything else. Just this courage to remain calm on the spot is a personal talent. Then talk about it again. How did you learn about the rebellion of the Lugiatamen and how did it organize it? Man-made fight. I was not aware of the rebellion of the Deer Antlers. It was a friend from the north who told me that a large number of people with weapons gathered near the Lanyangmen. Who is it? Leonor was energetic. Has anyone from the north played a role in this matter? His name is Yulin, without a last name, without a territory, without a wife, and people prefer to call him another name. Langsley. Yulin, right. Leonor suddenly realized that it was Barry Dondarrion who could react in time, and it was the Night Watch who reminded him, he is still in King's Landing, it's still here. He said he recruited people for the Night Watcher and brought some news about the Great Wall in the north. I hope to see you, Your Majesty. Barry Dondarrion bowed and conveyed Langaya's request for advice. Don't hurry for this. Leonor knew that it was probably the Night Watch who discovered the White Walker and came to report the news, but there was no hurry for this matter. Barry, you continue to say that after you get the news, how to organize man-made battles. Your Majesty, His Highness Stannis' fleet was in Blackwater Bay at that time. When I heard that a large number of people with weapons gathered in the Mudgate, I felt that things were not that simple, so I found my friend, Mills Red Sorwas, and some people rushed over. The Deer and 10 Meals had not launched an attack at that time. We caught one of his companions, and after asking about the situation, we attacked them. Why attack the Deer Antlers instead of assisting them to open the city gate and welcome Stannis into the city? Leonor held up his chin with interest in the King's Hall. With Leonor's problems, Balliston and others couldn't help but sweat for Barry. Barry himself also showed some distraught expression and knelt down on one knee again, looking at the king on the Iron Throne. Sincerely said, My Majesty, our Dondarrion family ruled Black Harbor for generations and was loyal to the Iron Throne. I didn't think so much at that time. I just felt that the King's Landing under your rule was much better than in the past, and people had new expectations. His Highness Stannis, no matter what his thoughts, his army will definitely kill people when he enters the city, so, okay. Leonor clapped his palm directly. I am very satisfied with your answer. Dondarrion of Black Harbor and all the nobles of Westeros should learn from you, and only by taking the safety of the people to heart. Only then can you show your nobility. Get up, get up. With Leonor's raising his hand, Barry wiped the sweat from his forehead and barely stood up. Then his heart was replaced by a sense of ecstasy, because Leonor, who was in the upper head, spoke. Young Barry, I really want you to serve as my military minister. Tell me, do you have any experience in training the army? Leonor asked Barry if he was confident of taking office. My Majesty, my loyalty belongs only to you. I will use all my strength to complete your instructions. Barry quickly bowed. Do you have the experience of ruling the established army? Have you studied some military works? Or have you known some military training experience? Leonor was a little unsatisfied. Loyalty alone was not enough. My family has lived in the Black Harbor in the frontier for generations, but after I was born, the friction between Dorne, Storm and River Bay has ended. Barry was a little embarrassed. He had no much military experience. It seems you still need to exercise, so let's do it. You can follow Balliston to study in my military camp first, and I will send you to the west to follow Lord Landeo Tally for internship. When the time is right, you will be my first place. The Secretary of Military Affairs, Keanu, shook his head and rejected Barry's idea of becoming Secretary of Military Affairs. Yes, My Majesty, it is my honor to serve you. Barry was a little disappointed, but he still bowed to thank Leonor. Okay, you go aside first. Leonor nodded. Come on, summon Langaya Yulin for me. Let's listen to what the night watchmen on the Great Wall in the north have discovered. As he said, Barry Dondarrion wrapped his purple cloak and retreated to the side, while the guards went to find Durin, the Langaya. As Leonor told, it seems that the rogue will not come for a while. Let's talk about something else first. In addition to the garrison captain and the intelligence minister, we have 7 ministers of affairs. My prime minister, my chief inspector, and my big knight and everyone else. Aren't you recommended talents? Recommend talents, be generous, and recommend good talents to make me happy. Leonor smiled and encouraged Metz and others to recommend talents. My Majesty, I am willing to recommend my housekeeper Karen to you. Mess Tyrael bulged his stomach and took a step forward. He is my gardener manager and has always had great experience in caring for plants. I believe he served as the Minister of Agriculture, but he is now in the High Court. Yes, call our Master Karen to King's Landing. I will meet him personally. If he can increase our land to produce more food and crops, I will give you no stingy rewards. At the same time, thank you, my Prime Minister. Leonor agreed immediately, and used his words to make Mess Tyrael stand up and return to his original position with satisfaction. My Majesty, all the talents you need must be professional. I suggest you send a raven to the school city and ask them to send some bachelor's degree to provide you with services. A baron and Metz stood up, followed it and suggested to Leonor that the talents he wanted were very professional and he had to look for them in the school town. That's it. Leonor's smile was restrained. There were so few talents available in the nobles. It was really a worm. Then, according to our chief inspector, send the crows to the school city and let them come here some bachelors. Chapter 93 Financial Difficulties. The 3 ministers of the affairs and 9 ministers of the affairs cannot be in place. There are still many things to do in the affairs of the court. Leonor thought for a while and said to Balliston, who is next head, teacher, how many people are there in the royal guards now? Your Majesty, I am now left with me, Mandan Moore, Marin Tran, and Preston Greenfield to perform my duties. Balliston said with a little sigh. The previous 7 were the ones who had been in the past, in the Imperial Guard. Some hold their responsibilities until death, some swear to live, and some swear to be killed, and now only 4 people are left. Brinny of Tass, let her follow you to Hone. Recruiting 14 alternative royal guards, you can choose, the only requirement is loyalty and excellent martial arts. Leonor asked Balliston. Lin Tui eventually gave up his command ability and only demanded loyalty and martial arts. Your Majesty, are you going to hold a martial arts competition? Asked Balliston. No, the National Treasury has a tight financial resources and there is not so much money to hold a martial arts competition. And I fully trust you. What you recognize is what I recognize. Leonor expressed his full trust in the Great Knight. Yes, Balliston immediately paused. It seems that it will take some time for my soldiers to find the rogues. My adults, do you have other things to discuss? Leonor arranged the additional tasks of the Royal Guard, and saw that there were no rogues outside the King's Hall. Yulin's figure, so he saw if there was anything else in the ministers below. My Majesty, not long ago, the Iron Vault sent someone. Dorat walked out of the crowd and reported to Leonor, it's another headache for financial problems. Come on, let's talk about our financial situation. Leonor rubbed his forehead and had to concentrate on dealing with the matter. After your previous rectification, the wealth of the National Vault has increased, but your war has consumed a lot of money. Report numbers. Leonor waved his hand and asked Dorat to report accurate numbers. The National Vault lost 8 million golden dragons in the era of His Majesty Robert. Later, after your rectification and the elimination of the borer, Petter, there was an effective brief recovery, and the reserves of 1 million and 3 million golden dragons were restored in the vault. Dorat reported the numbers. Well, it's very good. This is also your efforts. Come on, let's talk about our spending in the war. Leonjo nodded. His official salt business policy was still effective. During the process of conquering the western border, the noble knights in the river and Stormland did not require military expenses, but in order to reclaim the land, I paid some expenses to invest in agriculture, such as buying seeds and building agricultural tools, which was used around the corner. About 100,000 golden dragons. Okay, I remember the church collecting debts and paying back about 300,000 golden dragons. Leonor nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. After the war, your soldiers will also need pensions and salary, as well as the expenses for food, grass and horses in the war, which cost a total of 500,000 golden dragons. Dorrit continued to report the accounts. Wow, I'll do it. I spent 900,000 golden dragons. At present, I have 400,000 golden dragons left in curry. Right, Leonor pretended to be relaxed. No. There is also the annual salary of the fief knight and the various expenses of Red Fort. This money is about 150,000 golden dragon. Dorrit continued to point out the accounts. 250,000. Leonor forced a smile on his face. How much do we owe the Iron Vault? Currently, the National Treasury owes 1.3 million golden dragons in the Iron Treasury, 600,000 golden dragons in the church, and 850,000 golden dragons in the River Bayland Geoding City. Damn, Robert, poke such a big financial hole in me. Leonor felt both hatred and glad. Hated that Robert had left him with such a bad stall, and was glad that he had blown up Pettier in time. If Pettier had not had Pettier's property, the National Treasury would have gone bankrupt directly. He had to start a war with his own face. It was hard to say that there would be several lords and nobles responding at that time. If the Lannister family was not destroyed in time, the matter would be even more serious, because among Robert's past creditors, the Lannister family owed the most, reaching a huge amount of 3 million. My Prime Minister, I won't be able to pay back your debt for a while. Leonor joked at Mestiriel below. My Majesty, we can do nothing to hurry up. Mestiriel smiled with a stern face, but did not say much, most afraid that Leonor would ask for money. Not only Mestiriel, but even Oberon Martell was furious and did not speak, for fear that the king would ask for money. Okay, Leonor snorted coldly when he saw the wooden stakes that could not share his worries for you. I am not that rogue, Robert. Without you, I can turn the economy around. Since the Raven has not come yet and there is nothing else, then the meeting will be over. Leonor waved his hand and decided to leave the meeting. He was too lazy to talk about financial issues with this group of waste, and even after talking about them, they could not come up with any solution. Most of the nobles retreated, leaving only Balliston, Dorrit and Vincent in the King's Hall to discuss the debt problem with Leonor. Dorrit, let's talk to the people from the Iron Vault and we will pay back part of the debt first. Leonor planned to use the same trick again. The people in the Iron Vault disagree. They gave two plans, either to pay off the interest in one go or to pay a portion of the interest. Dorrit had not asked about the relevant matters, but the messenger of the Iron Vault did not agree. How much interest? Leonor held his breath. 18,000 golden dragons. So, if they come to collect debts every time in the future, I will pay high interest. Leonor's face turned red. The interest alone would have to leave 180,000 golden dragon, and he would have to go one day. Put the usury loans in the Iron Treasury onto the right. Yes, in fact, they have been here several times before, and they collect huge interest every time. Dory, the Iron Treasury is like this, relying on large loans to earn interest, constantly losing the other party. Okay, use interest to send them away. When will they collect interest next time? Leonor decided to hold back for the time being. He is not qualified to challenge the Iron Vault and cannot let them cause trouble for themselves. This time next year. How many years has this year been the conquest? Leonor suddenly remembered something. In Westeros, who is not clear in all 4 seasons, he rarely noticed a passage of time. The conquest has lasted for 300 years. My Majesty. Today is exactly the last day of the conquest has lasted for 300 years. Dorrit replied to Leonor's question. The conquest has lasted for 300 years. Okay, I understand. Leonor pondered slightly. No matter what, he had taken a big step now and sat firmly on the Iron Throne, whether it was the Iron Vault or the North, or the River Bayland, the Dornland, and the White Walkers outside the Great Wall in the North, and the remnants of Targaryen of Essos. There is always a time to clean up these people. Chapter 94 Margaret's Trends. In the King's Hall, the atmosphere was dull. Dorrit and others saw Leonor in deep thought, and they didn't dare to speak. In the end, Vincent spoke boldly. My Majesty, Why don't we try to add 1 plus taxes, add taxes? Leonor came back to his senses and subconsciously remembered that this financial crisis requires money. Is there any tax available to collect in King's Landing now? As long as you collect, you can always receive money. Thanks to your previous laws, we exempted many farmers from taxes. When the wheat is ripe, it may be the time for us to take it back. Vincent proposed to collect from farmers. Tax? No need. Leonor waved his hand directly. He never shaved the poor man's money, then taxed the prostitutes or merchants in the city. Vincent knew that Leonor was good to farmers for food, so he proposed to increase taxes to other groups. No need. Leonor sneered. That's only a few kids. Vincent turned his head and looked at Orit with each other, saying, I don't want this one, I don't want that one, I don't want that. What's going on? Leonor had an idea in his heart to get money from whom he wanted to get money, but because of Balliston's presence, he couldn't discuss it directly with his 2 confidants and pondered for a while. Where's Davos Shewas, the Onion Knight, and Mynese Shireen, the Earl of Pixar sent Sir Sheworth with his son, and his Highness Zillan, who is now in the Virgin Tower. Defus and the others were put in jail. Leonor raised his eyebrows slightly. Dorit, Vincent and others did not reply. A prisoner who was sent in, had no special status and could only be imprisoned. I get it. Take the Shittles family out and send them to the Virgin Tower. I happened to meet them together. Leonor didn't say anything, so he asked someone to take them out quickly. Finally, he suddenly remembered Zillan's grayscales. I was sick, so I asked, how is that old guy Pascal? He's very good, Vincent responded. Pascal is a bachelor's degree and has a special identity. He was just imprisoned and was not executed immediately. Since it's very good, I'll take it to the Virgin Tower to let him cure Zillan's grayscale disease. If it can't be cured, then there's no need for him to live. Leonor gave Pascal the final word. The Nister family is dead, and it doesn't matter whether the old guy deals with it or not. Your Majesty, I have something to report to you, my brother. What are you hesitating? Leonor saw Vincent's hesitation and couldn't help asking, His Highness, she has returned to King's Landing before you and has been condolences to the army for you. Vincent mentioned one thing carefully. I don't remember that I asked her to comfort the army. She was comforting the army for herself. What else was she doing except comfort the army? Leonor expressed his expressionless face and directly extended his hand to the military power. Tyrell's movements were very bold. She also visited Miss Sansa and Miss Arya. Vincent held his breath slightly, and he felt that Leonor was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Teacher, have you received Tyrell's condolences? Leonor didn't say anything, turned his head and looked at old Balliston and asked with a smile. She sent someone to give 10,000 golden dragons to the harvest hall. Balliston pressed his sword in his hand and replied truthfully that he would not accept gifts, so the gift from the Tyrion family was sent to the Sirmi family in the harvest hall. That is where his hometown. What do you think? Leonor smiled. Even Balliston had a share. The Tyrion family was not only bold, but also quite thoughtful. I am the Royal Guard. Balliston's reply was decisive. The Royal Guard swore only loyal to the king, and any order assigned by the king was above everything else. Teacher, if they give it to you next time, you can accept it. If you don't, you can give it to me. I'm in a hurry to use the money. Munuo joked a little. I won't accept it, and they won't give it to me directly. Balliston replied with a straight face. That's a pity. Leonor smiled, and Balliston also curled the corners of his mouth, and the two of them were tacitly aware of it. You have to keep records and see which guys have collected things, write them down, and settle the score back. Leonor decided not to pursue this matter for the time being, and let the Tyrion family jump around first. Then Miss Stark. Vincent hesitated. Wait for a moment, see what the Northland says. Have you sent people to find Ed Stark? Leonor remembered Ed, whose life and death were unknown. I sent a spy to Hegiandi and followed Lord Ed's traces and found that he finally disappeared near Shitten Town. Vincent reported the news about his spy. Shitten Town. What is their suspicious place? Leonor frowned slightly. No, that town is gone. Before the Lannister family attacked Hegian, they sent Demon Mountain to lead troops to harass the Hegian area. The people from Demon Mountain burned the town. I think Lord Ed's the sword should have been stolen there. Vincent gave the speculation. Then can you find the body? Leonor sighed in his heart. The man still encountered an unexpected accident. No, the Demon Mountain burned the town to white ground, but my spies found that the team of the Free family in the Twin City had been resting there. Vincent said another message. I understand. Now that I have no point in saying this, just pretend that Ed Stark is dead. Leonor sighed. Compared to Robert and Renly, he really wanted to save AI. This northern duke can really help his royal career, but unfortunately it won't go as expected. Yes, Vincent responded. Is there anything else? Leonor asked if there was anything else. My Majesty, are you going to see His Highness Zillan next? Dorit stepped forward and asked. Of course, she is my niece. Is there any problem with seeing her? Leonor took it for granted. He hadn't seen Shilin a few times yet. He has no descendants yet, so every member of the Baratheon family, all bloodlines, must be treated with preciousness, otherwise there will be no successor to Wang Yi. Grayscale disease is a very difficult condition. I ask you to treat it with caution. Dorit raised a concern. He was afraid that Leonor would be infected with the grayscale disease. Is grayscale disease an infectious disease? Why don't I know? Don't worry, that kind of disease can be cured. Leonor laughed, and Dorit's concern made him feel warm. Yes, Your Majesty. Seeing that Leonor had made up his mind, Dorit stopped talking. By the way, transferred Donner back from the summer hall. Leonor remembered that he was now firmly on the Iron Throne and could not treat the old brother unfairly. Yes, Your Majesty, I have sent the crow, Vincent said. He had already thought about this for Leonor. It's very good. Then next, you go and do business. Berliston, you and I will meet Shilin, and the Onion Knight family. Leonor patted his hands and his expression became relaxed. Chapter 95 Zillan. In the Targaryen family, in order to maintain the purity of bloodline, there has always been a tradition of getting married in close relatives. When the Virgin Tower of Red Fort was first built, it was used to live for unmarried royal women. Later, I believe it firmly in order to break the temptations exerted by his beautiful sisters on him, Bel-I, the king of the Seven Gods, imprisoned his 3 sisters here. Later, the royal family gradually accepted the moral concept of the Seven Gods, which changed the vulgarity of close relatives and marriage, but the cold palace function of the Virgin Tower was also continued to be used specifically to detain women in the royal family. As Stannis' daughter, Shireen Baratheon, was also locked up here due to her bloodline, and a dwarf clown named Cubic Face was with her. The bubbles are poked. The bubbles are poked. The bubbles that the fish vomited were pierced and suddenly turned into big birds and flew up. When Leonor stepped into the old courtyard of the Virgin Tower, he heard a vague singing voice. In the cold courtyard, a dwarf was sitting on the black stone steps. The dwarf had red and green squares on his face, and a tin helmet with antlers hanging on it. He made a jingle sound as he shook his head stupidly. The clown, who was shaking his head and singing, suddenly saw a man with a ribbon on his shoulder and a crown on his head coming in. Before he could see his face clearly, he turned around and got up, ran into the stone tower house, and shouted "Zai" with grievance. Lynn's name, is this a square face? Leonor saw the red and green tattooed dwarf clown, and suddenly remembered the cube face mentioned by Arad, the only dwarf clown who survived his parents' shipwreck. Yes, Berliston, who followed, nodded to Leonor. Leonor didn't say anything anymore, stepped into the stone yard, and before he could enter the door, a girl ran out with her blue skirt. The girl has black hair and blue eyes, and has a distinctive Baratheon logo. However, her pair of wind-catching ears are obviously the temperament of the Florent family, but this does not affect her beauty overall. She has fair skin and blue skin. Her eyes were big, but her left chin had a black sore on her neck, which destroyed her inherent beauty. The little girl ran out of the room, and the clown face followed her. When the two saw Leonor and his party, they were stunned at the door, not knowing what to do. For a moment, Zillan, Leonor stood at the door, looking at the girl jogging out of the room and nodding to her as a greeting. His Highness Zillan, this is Her Majesty, your uncle, Leonor Baratheon. Berliston stepped forward and explained to Zillan in a low voice, Uncle. Zillan picked up the corner of her skirt and bowed to Leonor, but she did not call her Your Majesty, because according to the formal law, her father Stannis was the heir of the ranks. Let me take a look. Leonor nodded slightly, stepped forward and patted Zillan's little head, then stroked her left cheek with his fingers, taking the opportunity to brush the black sore there, which was very hard, like a stone. Is this grayscale disease? Have Pychel arrived? Leonor turned to Berliston and asked. On the way he was sending someone to bring him, so were the Seaworth's family. Berliston replied, leaning over. Does it hurt? Leonor nodded slightly and turned to Shilin and asked. It doesn't hurt much. Zillan shook her head at a loss. Don't worry, it can be cured. Leonor smiled and comforted Zillan. Is that right? The little girl responded to the strange man in front of her. Since her birth, many people thought she should not live and thought she should die. No one ever said she would cure her, because I said. Leonor responded naturally. Just because you said? Zillan suddenly asked seriously. Not all, because you are my brother's only daughter. Although I have a little conflict with your father, for you, well, you are the only official bloodline in our third generation of Baratheon. Leonor, think about it carefully. Renly did not leave any descendants before his death, and he had no children yet. Joffrey and the three of them were Lannister's evil seeds. Robert's illegitimate children cannot be counted. Currently, only Shellen is the only third representing children. Is that right? Zillan tilted her head and suddenly burst into laughter. Of course, yes, of course, it's just a formal bloodline. If you include your uncle's illegitimate cousins, it's different. Let Renly come over to meet Zillan another day, and send a crow to Fanxi Castle, called Collis, bring Edric over here, and put a crow in the east. I remember Robert had illegitimate children there, and asked them to send people to King's Land. Leonor suddenly remembered again, and looked towards Valley behind him. Stan demanded that although Robert's illegitimate children could not be formal heirs, if they were trained, they would be considered as people in bags in the future. Yes, Balliston nodded quickly, saying that he would arrange King Robert's illegitimate children to King's Landing. After talking for a moment, the former Grand Secretary Sir over there had been brought over. The old man still looked trembling, but his expression was much haggard. He was obviously shocked by the war in the Western Front. I didn't expect that the Lannister family would be completely destroyed. The young Tywin Lannister also served as Prime Minister of the crazy King Aerys II for a time, and used a considerable iron-fisted policy in governing the western frontier and the country. It is precisely because of this that Pycelle, who as the Grand Secretary at the time, was right. He was pleased with surrender and even opened a gate of King's Landing for Lannister's army. However, he did not expect that Lannister's western border would be snatched and left, but this did not prevent him from getting close to the Lannister family. When is a powerful candidate for the Iron Throne now that Lannister and the entire western border aristocratic system have been eliminated? It is really shocking that Pycelle, who is Lannister's Iron Core, can't eat for several days. Look at Shellen. This is your only chance. Leonor pointed out the only way to survive when facing Pycelle, who dared not look at him. Yes, my majesty. Pycelle breathed a sigh of relief, dared not complain, and immediately went to check for Zillan just as Shell was sending Shire to check for Shire. The guards outside brought a group of people. The leader was brown and gray-haired, and his face was full of gray faces. It was Davos Schäfers who were escorted here, and his three children. Defus, long time no see. Leonor retracted his gaze at Pycelle, and Shellen opened his arms to the Onion Knight who was entering the door, and greeted him enthusiastically, but he didn't expect a figure to run out from his side, directly crashed into Davos' arms opposite, Master Lyanno. Davos was quite uncomfortable in the face of the enthusiastic Lyanno. Just as he was about to bend over, a small figure crashed into his arms, forcing him to open his arms to catch the person. Defus. Shellen hugged Defus and shouted, "My Highness." Davos also hugged Zillan. Very excited, Leonor felt a little embarrassed and had to put down his arms and go forward and smiled at Davos. It seems that Zillan likes you very much. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Onion Knight. Davos smiled awkwardly, apologized to Leonor, and then asked with concern and Zillan in his arms, "My Highness, are you doing well during this period?" "It's okay." Zillan looked up at Leonor and finally chose to nod. "My sir, I have a request. Please call the people from the Skull City in the name of the king to discuss the treatment of grayscale disease." Seeing that Zillan was fine, Davos breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Leon. "No one made a request. I have asked Pacier to treat Shellen now. If he can't treat it, I will send someone to the Bachelor as you said." Leonor pointed to Pacier beside him. "My Majesty, medicine and herbs are the areas I am good at. I can definitely treat His Highness Zillan. Please feel free to hand over your Highness to me," Pacier asked without hesitation. This was his only chance to survive. "Then what are you waiting for here?" Leonor snorted coldly. Davos glanced at the anxious Pycelle and wanted to tell Leonor that Bachelor Cleason had also diagnosed Shellen, but thinking that the bachelors were good at different disciplines, he lowered his head and said to Shellen, "Your Highness, if you have any discomfort, you must talk to me or this Majesty." "Okay, I will talk to you and your uncle." After Shellen focused heavily, she consciously let go of Davos's big hand and obediently followed Shield to undergo the inspection. Leonor stood aside with Davos, watching Pycelle check the black sores on her cheek for Shireen. How is it? Leonor stood side by side with Davos, tilted his head slightly, and asked the Onion Knight, Your Majesty, what are you referring to? Davos replied slightly restrainedly, On Dragonstone Island, Leonor reiterated the problem. He changed Davos' fate of being chopped down. After that, Davos has been on Dragonstone Island for the other party in order to repay Stannis' canonization. As a result of Stannis' existence, Davos had no closer to him except to send his second son Arad to his side. His Highness Stannis gave me trust, and I gave back this trust with my greatest ability. I recruited Rheza's merchant sailor and mercenary captain Saradosan. Davos answered himself truthfully. The process of serving Stannis. What about after that? Leonor asked. Davos was enthroned by Stannis and served him for so many times. He should have fulfilled his responsibilities. What should I do next? This, Davos hesitated. How about it? Leonor simply said. He took a fancy to Davos' ability. Your Majesty, do you want to trust me? Davos pursed his mouth. Or what do I want you to do for me? Leonor rolled his eyes. What can I do for you? Davos hesitated. He was very grateful to Leonor for helping him back then, but after all, he served Stannis over the years. If there was no place to display his talents, he felt that he might as well keep it. Loyalty to Stannis left a good reputation for the newly built Seaworth family. I heard you grew up in a flea nest, right? Leonor did not answer, but asked Davos a question. Arad once told him that the Seaworth family was born in a flea nest in the King's Landing slum civilian family. Is there anything wrong with this? Davos showed a puzzled expression. Then you should have a good understanding of flea nests and even the entire King's Landing city. Leonor continued to ask. I remember every street in King's Landing. Davos was very confident. Well, based on your conditions, I want to appoint you as the head of King's Landing. Leonor affirmed Davos' foundation and came up with his own appointment, Mr. Landing City Chief. Davos showed a confused look. What is this? It is equivalent to the acting Lord of King's Landing. He is directly responsible to me and manages the people of King's Landing for me. Leonor explained to Davos that it was not just King's Landing, but also Fanxi Castle, Lannister Port. He plans to send a general manager to the Shenjiu City, Jioga City, and Shengshihal to enfeoff the place, and does not intend to enfeoff the enfeoffment. Your Majesty, there are 500,000 people in King's Landing City. Davos showed a look of surprise. Of course, so this is a difficult task. I don't expect you to complete this matter alone. You are only responsible for the planning and development of the city. You must improve the environment here and feed the belly of the civilians. Only in this way can the country develop peacefully. Leonor remarked on his expectations. Are you really willing to hand over this matter to me? Davos fell into deep thought. Managing 500,000 people was a challenge and an opportunity. If this task could be completed, the Seaworth family would be. Will you be able to take this matter to a higher level? But will Leonor hand over King's Landing to himself? He is a vassal of Stannis. Aren't you afraid that he will direct the rebellion of the Lugiadman again? Of course, I said, you can't complete this matter by yourself, and the city's garrison has nothing to do with you. Leonor saw what Davos thought, and he did not intend to trust the other party completely. The only thing he entrusted to was the city management and planning work. His current overall personnel appointments are carried out in accordance with a centralized model, that is, he concentrates representatives of the major feudal forces in front of his imperial power, and himself restrains them, and then sends close confidants to his territory for management. In order to avoid the local area being large, local power will be further divided, and there will be no one who manages government and military affairs. At the same time, there will be supervisors in various places for supervision. Are you still willing to accept this appointment? Leonor asked Davos what he meant. How is my son Arad under your command? Davos asked about his second son. He is in the western frontier and manages Jioga City for me. Things are done well. I will transfer him back and continue to hone and appoint him until he can stand alone and take over your position, or manages the storm for me. Midsummer Hall or the West. Leonor did not hide his thoughts either. When Davos heard Leonor's description of his son, he couldn't help but sigh and knelt on one knee. Your Majesty, as you said, you are willing to believe me, and I am willing to offer your loyalty. Okay. Seeing Davos's action, Leonor showed a satisfied look on his face and reached out to help him up. Davos, believe me, your loyalty will definitely be rewarded with great rewards, just like you did in Fanxi Castle in the past. Helping hand. Leonor's tone was full of hints. He was optimistic about Davos, who was from the bottom of the class. Such a guy was capable and courageous. If he was able to do things in the future, he would not be stingy with power and wealth. In the name of the seven gods, I will do my best to complete the task you assigned to you. Davos also heard the meaning of Leonor's words and quickly expressed his loyalty. Haha. Leonor laughed. Davos was also a wonderful guy. He looked sobbing back then that he thought he was just a disguise, but it didn't matter. What he needs now is someone with outstanding abilities, regardless of loyalty or no, as long as it can be used by him. Chapter 97 The Wave Crow Yulin. On this side, Leonor and Davos had a good deal of surrender, and on the other side, Syl's examination of Shire was also over. The former Grand Secretary, who claimed to have specialties in medicine and herbs, saluted Leonor slightly with a slight custody. Opening, My Majesty, I have finished my examination of His Highness Zillan and have a few good ideas for healing. Let me talk about Shillin's situation first. Leonor was unwilling to listen to Pachel's tantrums and asked him to explain Shillin's situation first. Your Highness's grayscale disease has spread here. If you go further, it will infect your mouth and tongue, and then you will be unable to save yourself. Pachel pointed at his chin. How much time will this be? Leonor frowned. This grayscale disease seems to be undesirable. This is probably between 1 year and 3 years, and may not move, because I have read some records that some grayscale patients have stopped spreading under specific circumstances. Pachel gave himself estimation of, if that's the case, why don't you start your treatment yet? What do you need? Leonor scolded Pachel for saying that since time is so tight, why should you delay like this? The treatment method I have estimated cannot be used directly on His Highness Zillan. I asked some people with grayscale disease to treat it, and wait until I find a successful and safe way to use it on His Highness Zillan. Your Majesty, please trust me, it's an insurance approach. Pachel spoke his opinion. Fatalize all his requests. Leonor turned his head and said to Vincent, Yes, Your Majesty. As Vincent bowed and nodded, Leonor also turned his head and said to Pisier, who was bent down, This is your opportunity, don't waste it. My Majesty, I am grateful for your kindness. I will do my best to cure His Highness Zillan. Pachel bent his waist deeper, ensuring that he would cure Zillan's grayscale disease. That's the best. Leonor nodded with satisfaction, but ignored Pachel's humility and turned to Vincent, satisfied all the requirements of Master Pachel, and also sent the ravens to the school town, asking them to send a few more medical bachelors to assist Master Pachel, and in addition, some of the talents we need. Make a list of students to study. City, let the bachelors there send people over, don't bargain. Many of his next work would require the help of the bachelor of the school town, not just the treatment of Zillan. Yes, Your Majesty, Vincent responded again. Sir Shivas, you can't be idle either. You have to come up with a plan as fast as possible. Leonor ordered Paige and Vincent, and then turned his head and spoke to the Onion Knight. Please give me instructions. My Majesty. Davos nodded quickly. My goal is to make everyone in King's Landing have enough food and the city becomes clean and hygienic. Tell me, can you do it, and how do you do it? Leonor asked Davos's advice. This, My Majesty, please let me think about it. Davos pondered a little. This is not a small goal, then think slowly. Write down your thoughts and submit them to me. Leonor asked Davos to submit a written report. Yes, Leonor arranged all the business and private affairs, and finally came to Zillan, patted her little head, looked at her blue eyes and said, Zillan, be obedient and you will be fine. Yes. Can I still see my father? Zillan looked up at her black-haired and blue-eyed uncle and made a request. Yes, Leonor heard Shillan mention Stannis, but he did not refuse. Stannis could instruct Melisandre to kill Renly, but he could not catch him like him and lock him up. Just I want to see my father sooner, Zillan asked. It depends on your father's attitude. I can't do anything, but I will let you see him again. In short, you can cooperate with Pachel and make yourself get better as soon as possible. Leonor comforted Shillan. Okay, Zillan didn't make any requests this time, nodded obediently, and said that she would definitely receive good treatment. Leonor comforted Zillan for a while, and told the guards who were guarding her and sent Shil to take care of Zillan before leaving the Virgin Tower. He happened to meet the guards to report that the Langaya Yulin had already been found for the representatives of the Night Watch. You must meet them. Leonor returned to the King's Hall where he received the so-called rogues. The Raven is not a nickname among the Night Watchmen, but a title of official. The Night Watchman is called Crow because he is wearing a black robe. The Wave Crow is the recruiting official among the Night Watchmen and is named after his wandering in the Seven Kingdoms. Come to see Leonor's famous rogue work Yulin. His previous deeds are unknown. He is tall, with a slightly hunched back, and his black beard and hair look oily and shiny, making his deep nose and concave face become more gloomy. Your Majesty the King, the gloomy-looking rogue crow was taken into the king's hall and directly stroked Leonor's chest. I won't say much about other gossip, just tell me about your news. Leonor waved his hand, eliminating etiquette. It's like that, His Majesty the King. About 2 months ago, one of our patrols searched the snow north of the Great Wall and found some of the bodies of our dead brothers resurrected. Those bodies had blue eyes, and move quickly and quickly. We think the White Walker may have made a comeback. I understand. I believe that the Night Watcher will not lie, but Langaya Yulin, you also know that the situation in the Seven Kingdoms is not good now. What help do you want from me? Leonor did not ask for details. The White Walker's comeback is the highlight of Game of Thrones, and he will not doubt it. The key now is what he can do. We hope to recruit more volunteers to go to the north and guard the Great Wall. The return of the White Walkers will definitely cause the savage tribe to move southward. We are not enough, Langaya Yulin told the Night Watchman's request. Have you brought this news to Winterfell, North? Leano asked. No, the Duke of Stark of Winterfell is missing. His son Robb Stark led his army south, but we couldn't meet. Yulin also wanted to go to Winterfell for help, but unfortunately he didn't meet the main master. I understand. Then when you go to Winterfell this time, when you return to the north, you will also tell Robb Stark about the relevant situation. I remember that every generation of the Stark family will send people to the Night Watch to serve. They will not sit idly by. Leano asked Langaya to go to Winterfell when he returned to the north to convey the news. Then Yulin hesitated and asked himself to go to Winterfell. What about the King's Landing? You can go to our cell to take a look. If anyone is willing to be a night watchman in the north, you can take it away directly. Leano slashed the corner of his mouth. It is not a trivial matter to be a volunteer for a night watchman. That is to swear that you will not marry, have children, or have fiefs. No one will be willing to go to the north except for prisoners who want to wear black robes to escape the crime. Chapter 98 Plan. Langaya Yulin was not very happy to hear Leonor ask him to pick people in the cell. He was certain that the Night Watch volunteers had been picked out from the cell, but he still hoped that the king could send a real army to help, instead of letting him pick people from those scumbags. Langaya Yulin was a little unhappy, but it was hard to say it clearly, because he knew that this was the best result for him. At least the king did not directly say that he was a liar and had given him enough respect. Langaya Yulin was a little suspicious of whether the king believed in the words "whites go back," but suddenly he heard the king say something. In addition to the staff in the cell, I will send people to Longshi Island to mine the dragon crystals there to make weapons. That is the best weapon to deal with White Walkers. Leano cannot support the Night Watcher in his hands, nor does he want to support the forces of Night Watchmen, but can provide assistance in weapons. After all, there is no need for steel to deal with White Walkers. Your Majesty, can't you send an army? Langaya Yulin couldn't help but feel moved when he saw Leonor mentioning Longjing. The king believed in White Walkers, so why not send additional troops to the northern border? Do you think this is feasible? My army passes through the northern border to the Great Wall. Leano rolled his eyes. This guy is afraid he is not a fool. Why can't it? My Majesty, among the Seven Kingdoms, you are the only king, and your army should go wherever you think. Yulin begged. The White Walkers' affairs were extraordinary, and the power of the Night Watcher has been for thousands of years. Nowadays, there is a serious lack of manpower, and we urgently need to replenish our military strength, and we cannot be the kind of scumbag. This is not a crow, isn't it very good at speaking? But no matter how much you praise me, I don't have the army to give you. Leonor complained about urine in his heart, but he still patiently explained to him, I am very happy with your words, Yulin. As you said, I am the only king of the Seven Kingdoms, but my power is not enough to do whatever I want. Once my army enters the north, it will definitely cause the north. The princes, especially Robb Stark, questioned why the king's army did not go to the north but did not go to the south. They would doubt whether it was to deal with the White Walkers or against them. Actually, in addition to giving your army, I would rather give you some advice, such as asking Banniang Stark or Jon Snow to Winterfell to ask for support. The Stark family still trusts their own people. Another, compared to the land of the Seven Countries full of disputes, I think you can actually unite with the savages. The return of the White Walkers will be a disaster for all living people. Leano gave advice for the Night Watchman, but was interrupted before he could finish speaking. This is impossible, My Majesty. Langaya Yulin heard Leonor's proposal to unite with the savages and directly and decisively rejected it. For thousands of years, when the White Walkers disappeared in the past, we have been fighting against the savages to prevent them from crossing the Great Wall. We will never cooperate with those savages, so, you would rather accept the rapist or murderer than accept the savages who fought against the White Walkers with you thousands of years ago? Leonor raised his eyebrows. Is there any need for the Night Watcher to raise his Majesty the King? I have conveyed the message of our Night Watch brothers and received your reply. If you have nothing else, I will leave. Yulin offered to say goodbye with a stern face. Goodbye. Leonor saw Langai reacting so much, and knew there was nothing to say, so he just gave the guests away. Langai Yulin left without looking back. Just because he could not accept Leonor's statement of joining the savages, Leonor sent off Lang Chao, feeling a little sad. There are so many troubles in this world. Game of Thrones is in dire straits, and the White Walkers in the north are in it. One bad thing is that the world is destroyed. If you die, you should add more. Just think about it, the White Walkers in the north are a big danger, but as long as Daenerys doesn't commit suicide and doesn't want to send a dragon to the Great Wall, then the Great Wall in the north can still ensure that this hidden danger will not break out. But it's not a problem to keep it like this. Leonor calculated that he must pack up as quickly as possible and formulate a feasible plan to unify the 7 countries, then rush his troops northward, unite all forces that can be united, and go out of the Great Wall to plow and sweep the courtyard. The acute point completely eliminates the white ghosts. This is a very long plan. Maybe it is not yourself who completes the last step, but your grandson and great-grandson. But this is not important. What is important is whether the plan can be implemented firmly, and the first step is thorough. How should the plan to unify the 7 countries be implemented? Now, among the 7 kingdoms, the Lannister in the western border has been eliminated, but we cannot take it lightly. We must prevent a new Lannister from appearing. The Tyrell family in the River Bay and the Martell family in Dorne entered the Imperial Center through the Covenant. They both made small moves openly and secretly, but the Tyrell family used Margaret as a medium and became more unscrupulous. The Martell family is even more hidden. They are probably still connected with the remnants of Targaryen. A typical rat. Leonor was a little confused about these 2 guys. He felt that political annexation was the best strategy, but the big knife of violent elimination could not be put down, because the Terrier family was contacting his military officials, which he could not tolerate. The struggle for power has always been like this. There must always be a bottom line, and no violent means can be given up. The same is true for the Tyrell family. Once they gain power, they will definitely go further. Even if they will not change their dynasties, there will definitely be a royal power. Leonor feels that if he lets the Tyrell family undermine it, he will still have some effort. What to do if you destroy the western frontier? Wouldn't it be better to just fly across the ocean to be a pawn for the remnant of Targaryen? Even the Tyrion family is like this, let alone the Martell family. Those guys have been away from the mainstream culture of the 7 kingdoms. Even though he has won over Oberyn, Prince Daolang, the ruler of the Martell family, has always been hidden. Behind them, I think they have not given up on the idea of helping Targaryen make a comeback. This guy must not give up violent means. The East Valley is currently a scattered sand, and is in the stage of being suspicious of the country. It is a suitable option for direct elimination. But you need to find a suitable reason to fight. Higiandi has now become a vassal in the northern border. On the contrary, the Stark family has lost its constraints and has shown its unruly nature. Sooner or later, they will challenge the Iron Throne and must implement the deal with them as soon as possible. Plan with Huendi and Uan. He should merge or destroy it at the right time, and choose the right time to destroy the Eastern Territory. At the same time, he should fight with the princes of the Northern Territory and the Hegian Territory and completely defeat them. Leonor calculated, after doing these things, the 7 kingdoms should be almost done and can achieve true unity. As for how much time it takes to complete this plan, 10, 20, 30 or 40 years, time is not worth mentioning in the face of such a macro plan. Chapter 99 Religious Taxation. The last day of Aegon's 300 years was spent in busyness and planning, and the beginning of the new year was spent in pure busyness. There are many details to add to Leonor's grand plan. The first thing to be effected is the development and renovation plan of King's Landing in the King's Hall. Leonor sat upright on the Iron Throne, and together with his close friends such as Dorit, Vincent, and Nanake, listening to Davos report. As a native of King's Landing, Davos made a complete King's Landing development and renovation plan for Leonor, including flattening the entire flea nest, building a large number of public facilities such as houses, public toilets, sewers, and improving road traffic conditions. Build a capable and responsible urban management team to replace the Golden Robe, etc. My Majesty, my plan will not only improve the city, but will also bring a lot of work to idle farmers, who can buy more food and salt with income, which means more taxes. Davos explained his construction plan with some anxiety. Very good, tell me, what do you need? Leonor was quite satisfied with the plan. Many of the details he did not notice. I need professional talents and a lot of materials, but these things can be included with them. Golden Dragon. Davos spread his hand slightly to Leonor. How many? It is impossible to complete the entire city's transformation without millions of golden dragons, but in the early stage, about 100,000 golden dragons are enough. Davos swallowed. How much money is left in our vault now? Leonor looked at his accountant leader Ake, an old man who is good at settlement. Your Majesty, the recent salt tax has just been paid. We now have 140,000 golden dragons. Ake opened his shriveled mouth and reported to Leonor. Defis, the rest depends on you, Leonor said to Defis, and he gave him 40,000 more, hoping that Defis would not let himself down. My Majesty, you are my god. Davos knelt down directly. Dorit, how are you doing the team I asked you to organize? Leonor turned his head and looked at Dorit. It's ready. Dorit nodded to Leonor. Vincent, where's the information about the church? Leonor looked at his breast brother again. It has been collected. Okay, then let's start. Starting today, taxes will be imposed on the church. The church priests will pay the god respect tax, monk respect tax, and nun tax. The church will pay the land tax. The church bail will pay the clock tax. The god respect tax will be a silver deer, priest tax 1 silver deer. The church's size, the 20 golden dragons with a bell tower of the holy church, only 1 golden dragon in the prayer hall. The clock tax is size, the big clock hardware dragon, and the small clock 3 golden dragons. While collecting taxes, a notice was issued. Starting today, all the 7 god monks must be qualified in the examinations held by the kingdom before they can preach. Each monk must pay the assessment fee for 1 silver deer. Anno issued a series of relevant religious decrees. Many of the people in the next head were close ministers. They had participated in the discussion of relevant religious decrees earlier, and now they are calm when they hear the announcement, except for Davos. Davos was stunned at the moment. He never expected that Leonor, who was short of money, would actually reach out to the church. He wanted to persuade him, but suddenly he thought that the church had nothing, and the Targaryen dynasty had done it. They are useless, and now they are just taxing the church, which is no big deal. After calming his surprise, Davos and the king, after proclaiming the decree, he praised the other ministers. Yes, my Majesty. Okay, that's probably it. Today's inter-court meeting ends here. Next, let's go to the Prime Minister's tower to attend the outer court meeting. Leonor clapped his hands and ended the inter-court meeting at present. Leonor established an internal and external court based on the ancient Chinese internal and external dynasties. Originally, the internal court gave the policy or goal, and the external court issued a plan and implemented it. However, considering that the 9 ministers of the affairs were not complete, the internal court became the idea and the role of execution. As for the outer court, in the Prime Minister's tower, when Leonor came over, there was already a quarrel here. This is absolutely impossible. Miss Tyrael was so angry that she blew her beard and glared. I will never agree with this request. Compared to the anger of the inflatable fish, the red venomous snake, a baron sat leisurely with his hands. Mr. Maze, you are not Miss Sansa, nor Miss Arya, nor Robb Stark. What happened? My Prime Minister and my Attorney General. Leonor walked into the hall of the Prime Minister's tower and asked the angry 2 people with smile. My Majesty, Oberyn said he would let their Prince Quentyn marry Sansa Stark and Prince Tristan marry Arya Stark. Mess stood up and complained to Leonor at the first time. Your Majesty, please believe me, this is an absolutely favorable engagement. The Martell family will cherish this gift from you, so as to ensure that both the North and Dorne are under your rule. Oberyn stood up and looked at Leonor explained. His words and attitude were extremely earnest. He probably wanted to use this engagement to dilute the connection between the Martell family and the Targaryen family, so that the Martell family can truly take the team to the Baratheon dynasty. When Leonor faced Oberyn's sincerity, he suddenly thought of Prince Dorne's intention and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Your Majesty, you must not agree to the conditions of this Dorne venomous snake. I ask you to consider betrothing Sansa Stark to my son Loras. If Garland is fine, we can also ensure that the North is in your place. Under the rule of the country, Mess also made a request to Leonor. If Oberyn's plan made Leonor hesitate, Then Mess's proposal only made him want to laugh, and let the Martell family marry Stark's daughter. At least they could break up with Targaryen. What can the Tyrion family do to marry Stark's daughter? Increase their strength so that they can undermine themselves. His Highness Oberyn, and Lord Mess, I am the king, not a god. If you have any questions about the outstanding children in your respective families wanting to marry the daughter of the wolf, you should ask them for their personal and their family's opinions. Leonor decided not to express his opinion. He had a good relationship with Ed and admired the character of the Duke of Winterfell, so he did not intend to sell his daughter to others as bargaining chips. Judging from the reactions of Mets and Oberyn, they also had a premonition that the anti-ministering intention in the north was decided and that war could start at any time. So they wanted to retain the key to the power in the north. It is a cliché to carry out political annexation through marriage and eliminate the rebels through violent means, and Leonor sneered in his heart. Chapter 100 The Dragon is Here. Leonor's answer made Oberyn and Mets silent together, and the Prime Minister's tower fell into a strange silence until Leonor spoke to break. Where's Balliston? Where is Varys? Your Majesty, Lord Balliston is going to choose the royal guard for you. As for Varys, I don't know, Mess replied to Leonor, so that's it, then forget it. Come on, everyone find a seat to sit down. Today is the first meeting of the new year. Leonor waved to Dorrit, Vincent, Ake, and Davos behind him. Find a seat by yourself. 8 people can sit on the table of the Prime Minister's tower. Leonor sat in the east, Mets was on his left, Oberyn sat on the right, Dorrit, Vincent, aka Yi and Davos sat opposite each other, leaving a free space. I'll introduce you to Davos, my newly appointed Chief of King's Landing, who is responsible for the territorial affairs of King's Landing. This is Ake, and I decided to appoint her as the finance minister. Leonor pointed at Davos. And Ake introduced Oberyn and Mets, and they stood up and saluted the king's hand and the chief inspector. Your Majesty, the head of the King's Landing city. Mets looked at Davos, a little reluctant to speak, but was thinking that he was not a former minister or minister of affairs, so why would he sit here? In this way, he is the territorial affairs officer who belongs directly to me, in charge of the affairs of King's Landing. Because this is more important, he attended the imperial meeting and was only responsible for listening. If there is any matter, he could ask him to report, Leonor explained to Mess. Oh, so that's it. Mess suddenly realized when he heard this, and then laughed. This is not bad, it's not bad. Haha, this smiled awkwardly, and seemed not very satisfied with my appointment of officials. My Majesty, many of your officials have not yet taken their seats, but now our table is almost unable to sit down. Oberyn looked at Mess, who was smirking and curled his lips in his heart. The essence of the power of the imperial meeting in front of the emperor was almost unable to sit down. The upper is diluted. Isn't there another one? Davos couldn't help but point to the vacant seat opposite Leonor. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a voice coming. Sorry, everyone, I'm late. With a light voice, Varys, who was holding his hands in the silk sleeves, came late. Please pay attention to the time next time. Leonor beaten in a deep voice, causing Varys to stop being ready to enter the seat. He bowed before sitting opposite him. The empty seats of the imperial meeting were made up. The original imperial meeting was 7 seats plus 1 king's seat. The 8 positions are now full. No, one should be missing, because Balliston also has 1 seat. It seems that I have to order a new table back. Mess Tyrion looked at the 8 seats that were all full, and couldn't help but shake her head. Order a few more, Leonor mentioned next to him. Mets opened his mouth wide. The number of people in the imperial meeting will not increase, but the corresponding attendance will increase. And I find that there is no special record of our meeting, Leonor explained to Mets, and later he would ask other officials to go ahead. I came to listen, but there seemed to be no record of the imperial meeting. Mets continued to open his mouth wide. Recording, what is that? Go and transfer a few quick scribes to come over. Every imperial meeting in the future will be recorded in detail. Especially relevant resolutions. Leonor waved, and Vincent next to him hurriedly called guards to shout people. Your Majesty, is it necessary? Oberyn was also a little surprised when he heard this. The imperial meeting determines the direction of the kingdom. Shouldn't it be treated solemnly? My Highness, Leonor asked Oberyn in reverse, but it requires hiring more people, and it also consumes parchment and pen. Mets muttered, I'll spend money. Leonor blocked Mets with just one sentence. No, I mean it's meaningless to do this. Will a big man like us refuse to admit what he said? Mets quickly rejected. My sir, please rest assured. This is just a record of every detail of our kingdom. Leonor laughed and comforted Mess. Come on. Don't worry about such small problems. Let's talk about what problems are there in our kingdom. Discover your problems and submit your problems. Let's solve the problems together to make the kingdom better. The king is more valuable. Leonor is unwilling to worry about small matters and starts the meeting directly. Your Majesty, I just received the news. It was from Essos. Varys spoke in a low voice. Sir Varys, you can amplify the sound a little, so everyone's ears will not be damaged. Leonor said with a smile. Your Majesty, Daenerys Targaryen married a tribe called Drago in Essos to Seo, a tribe called Drago, whom her brother Viserys drew her sword at a banquet. He looked at each other and was executed by the Drago KO. Varys amplified some of his voice. Isn't this good news? Leonor still smiled but felt a little nervous. Daenerys married Drago, which means that a dragon should be born soon. Drago KO was injured in a tribal infighting and fell seriously ill and dying a month ago. In order to save him, Daenerys hired a witch to perform the legendary blood magic. After speaking, Leonor's smile calmed down. It turned out that the dragon was already born. She didn't save her husband, but hatched it. Dragon. Varys paused slightly when she mentioned the word the dragon and swallowed. Dragon. Mess seemed to hear a smile and asked, what a big dragon? Healthy dragon? A dragon that can spit fire? 3. Varys glanced at Leonor opposite, then looked at the serious Oberyn, and others with no expression, repeatedly reiterated Danielly afterwards. The giant dragon of silk. Okay, I understand. Where is her current movement? Leonor silently calculated that Daenerys hatched the dragon, and the next thing should be to go to liberate Slave Bay as a late descendant of the dynasty who was born in exile. Daenerys had not received relevant political education and was not very mature in some aspects. As long as it was done properly, it would be easy to mix her in Slave Bay. I don't know. I heard that she became Calixy of the Drago tribe with a dragon, and then fled into the Red Wasteland with a few remaining tribes, and then there was no news. Varys reported to herself known information. Come on the map of Essos. Leonor raised his head and asked the guards to come over to get the map of Essos. Sorry, Your Majesty, Red Fort has only a map of Westeros, and it was left by Aegon I back then. Mess stood up and replied to Leonor, My Majesty, do you really believe this news? Oberyn couldn't help but question the authenticity. After all, the dragon had disappeared for hundreds of years. Let's look for professionals to survey and map the map. No matter what the situation is, we must at least have a reference. Leonor expressed his dissatisfaction to Metz, and said to Oberyn, it doesn't matter whether it's true or false, Tanger I always have to find a way to deal with Leon's remnants. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.